have in mind to begin with.
I guess I'll have one for them, just in case.
Just in case? No, I stole one from.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ed Hoops, Chairman of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission. We will now convene the November 3rd, 2022 meeting of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission. As required by General Law, Chapter 30A, Sections 18 through 25, pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, the public are able to attend this meeting either in person or via the alternative public access. Members of the public may watch the meeting live on Channel 18 or watch and/or participate in the meeting hosted in Zoom. The meeting notice provides necessary instructions to join the meeting via Zoom. Please note that audio, video, and screen sharing functions will be disabled for all attendees. You may request to participate by using the raise hand function. We will now begin by taking a roll call for quorum. Ed Hoops is here. Tom Durkin is not here. Patricia Mulhern.
Here.
Ellie Lawrence.
Present.
Rick Bishop.
Present.
Paul Huggins.
Here.
David Bernstein.
Present.
With the quorum present, I will now call the meeting to order. So again, this is the meeting for November 3rd, 2022, Yarmouth Conservation Commission. First order of business is a request for the determination of applicability for Troy Thomas, 15 Nauset Road, Yarmouth, proposed 31 by 12-foot deck on sonotubes and land subject to coastal storm flowage. One up to the podium. When you're ready, just state your name for the record and then briefly. I'm sorry, either one.
He's new here.
It's force of habit, sorry.
So, my name's Troy Thomas, Thomas Home Improvements.
Did you say Roy?
Troy.
Troy, sorry.
Sorry.
And you just want to briefly describe what you'd like to do.
Well, we're proposing to install a composite deck on sonotubes on the back of this residence here at 15 Nauset Road on sonotubes with 2 stairwells.
Okay. Any questions from the commission?
No.
Anybody, oh, sorry, Brittany?
No.
Anybody in the audience have any comments, questions on this one? Anybody in Zoom have a comment for, where are we, 15 Nauset Road? If not, would somebody like to make a motion for a -2?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. All right, thank you. So the negative determination is a good thing for you. It means that you don't have to do any further filing with Conservation Commission. You can go ahead and start working toward your building permit,
Okay.
and we'll be able to sign off in a couple days, okay?
Great, thank you all.
All right, thank you. Next order of business is a continued notice of intent for SE 83-2350, Paul Schaefer, Peter M. Fairbanks, 41 Uncle Roberts Road, Yarmouth, proposed raise and replace of a single-family home, swimming pool, patio, fire pit, grading, and landscaping, and new septic system within buffer zone to coastal bank and buffer zone to coastal dune. This has been continued from most recently October 6th. It looks as though we've had significant improvements. So, Eric.
We're hoping so. My name is Eric Tolley from ERT Architects, representing the Fairbanks. Next to me is Tom Mulcahy from Mulcahy Design Group. I think we have Asa Mins and Paul Shea on Zoom acting as the civil engineers. So, hopefully tonight's third time is a charm. We've made some improvements since the last time you saw this plan. In a nutshell, we've reduced the size of the house by about 1,000 square feet, reduced the size of the pool by about 80%. I don't know what that translates to in terms of a reduction in the hardscaping from the number that you saw the first time, but if that's a question, Tom will be able to speak to that. While the septic system was not within any of the 100-foot buffers in the prior plan, we have moved it from the south side of the house to the west side of the house to get it even further away. And as you will see, the house in its entirety is outside the 100-foot buffer to the coastal bank. And the house is also outside of the 50 to the top of coastal dune. Some of the hardscaping extends to within the 100-foot buffer, but nothing crosses the 50-foot buffer. So with that, I think I'll leave it to questions if there are.
Okay, yeah, I think it's a significant improvement there. Thank you for making those extra changes. Anybody on the board have any comments, questions?
Thank you.
I just have two comments. From the first plan and this plan, I think, as well, there's a 150-foot setback for the private well.
Yep.
Did you talk to Board of Health about
Well has
that?
been moved, yes.
Okay. And the only other problem I have is that Ilex crenata is an emerging invasive species in the Northeast, not in Massachusetts yet, but we would prefer and I think require that you would replace just that one plant with something from the native plant list so that we don't increase that problem on Cape Cod.
Okay.
So,
And we can just put that in a special condition.
Yeah.
You all good on that? And you can just change, you can do that. We don't need to see a new plan or anything. We'll just put that into the order then.
perfect.
Okay. Anybody in the audience? Anybody in Zoom? Raise your hand digitally. I see none unless there's a,
Paul Shea, but it's part of them.
oh,
Yeah,
Paul,
Paul
I'm
Shea.
sorry, Paul.
No, I just raised my hand at the beginning, if you needed me to open it, but I think Eric's done a fine job, and I think you've got all the revised information that you asked for, so I'll be quiet.
Okay. That's a sign of a good consultant. Is there any further discussion among the board?
No.
Right, if not, then could I have would somebody like to make a motion to approve the project with special conditions as noted?
So moved. Would you like the special
No, that's
conditions, or
okay,
we're
you're
just
good.
gonna?
Yeah, we're going, so Brittany will add that special
Okay.
condition with the plant type. Is there a second?
Second, David.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Eric?
Sure.
So there's two of them here.
Was there two in the last one?
Nope. Next order of business is a notice of intent for Eric Burgess 4, Joel Boyce, Lewis Bay Aquaculture, proposed 3-acre aquaculture farm in Lewis Bay and land under the ocean, land containing shellfish and NHESP estimated in priority habitat of rare wildlife. Is Bill here?
It does not look like Bill's here.
Okay, so just to, as a matter of sort of clarification, we still are waiting on, let's see, waterways, natural heritage review, and a DEP number.
We haven't been issued a DEP number for the project yet.
No, it's in their 30-day review process.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, I don't have an issue. If you want to go ahead and listen to it now, we are not going to be able to, well, we will have to continue, at least for the review, for the NHESP review, as well as comments from Waterways and, no, that's it, so the NHESP and Waterways review. So if that's okay, then we can go ahead and listen, but we won't be able to close it tonight.
Whatever
would
you
you like
guys want
to-
to do.
I mean,
You want to put it all together at once?
come back here again.
You would have to come back,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's no point in being here now, right?
Yeah, we'll come back.
Yeah, I mean, if it was just for the DEP number, I would say, no, you don't have to come back. We should just go ahead and listen to it. But if, because you never know if we're going to get some sort of comment from, well, DEP may comment as well as Natural Heritage, and that would be the one I'd be more concerned with.
All right, we'll come back.
Okay, so hopefully for 2 weeks, which will make it November.
17th?
The Waterways
17th,
Commission? I wasn't aware that we.
It's their
needed
review.
anything.
I'm sorry.
A review from Waterways, we'll get that.
Yeah, so the NHESP review has to come back. We can't sign off on that until we get an NHESP review.
All right.
Okay? All right, great, thank you.
Make a motion to continue until November, no.
17th, November
17th.
17th.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
You're testing my skills in writing fast.
Sorry, the next one also needs to be continued. They need to go to Waterways on the 14th. There's a little note in there.
Okay, do we have? All right, so next order of business, let me read this in as a notice of intent for Meredith Avery for Cynthia Richards. 0 Great Island Road, proposed beach and dune nourishment for coastal resiliency and barrier beach, coastal dune, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and in the buffer zone to a salt marsh. This is also needing to go to Waterways, and we have a letter from Katie Young, who's an environmental planner, saying sorry for the delay as Meredith has been out of the office. Looks like it will have to move to the meeting to the 17th, so they're looking to continue to November 17th as well. Is there a motion to that effect?
Rick,
Second.
Okay, David.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. See them on the 17th as well. All right, next order of business is another notice of intent for SE 83-2358 Dan Ojala for Joseph and Meredith Zona, 33 and 39 Seth Lane, Yarmouth. Proposed raise and replace of a single-family dwelling and new Title V septic system within riverfront protection area, land subject to coastal storm flowage, coastal bank, and the buffer zones to coastal bank and salt marsh.
Thank you.
Go on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Good evening, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Dan Ojala. I'm a land surveyor and civil engineer with Down Cape Engineering in Yarmouthport. With me is Eric Tolley, who is the project architect, and just in case there are any questions of him on the flood-resistant design building that we're proposing. And the Zonas are actively involved. They're probably on Zoom or will be here shortly, but would met on site and are very engaged and interested in, trying to improve this property. So we're submitting a notice of intent. There's actually two pieces of property here. It's important to understand. The diagram that I handed out shows the existing home, and then next door there's a vacant lot, which is Lot 3 on Plan Book 231-147. They formerly owned half of that, and they recently purchased the rest of it. But rather than pushing to have, an individual house on that lot, as you may or may not know, the town of Yarmouth is pretty liberal on grandfathered lots and ability to put a house on a lot. The Rivers Act also allows, up to 5,000 square foot of disturbance for a small home and so forth. But the good news is none of that is going to happen. That's going to be merged together. So you can see on note 17 on the bottom there, we're going to merge these two properties with a perimeter plan, and it'll become, here they come in now, but one single home on the entire tract of land. So this is it's kind of a prominent property. Little feedback. If you go over the Bass River Bridge, you can see it. It's the house that sticks way out on the river. It's kind of a promenade there. It's very exposed to weather and hurricanes and so forth. And so rather than rebuild up on, piles and try and, maintain what is, no question, a very nice view and a very nice location, a grandfather location that's very close to the river. They've done, I think, would be considered by you folks to be the right thing and pulled it back as far as they can on the lot away from the riverfront. And not only that, but they've gone above and beyond and proposed a state-of-the-art Nitroe wastewater treatment system. This is the new Clean 2 technology that's been tried out quite a bit in Barnstable through some piloting programs, but it showed excellent results in removing nitrogen, which, as we all know, is one thing that, although it's pretty well flushed in the lower river, it doesn't need any more nitrogen. And so to the extent that we can pull some out with this new technology, they're happy to propose that as part of this approval package. So where the house was now, down in the front, well, I should just say there's a number of resource areas. I spoke briefly. There's a river here. Of course, we've got Bass River. There's a flood zone. It's not so much a velocity zone here. If and when they put in the medium wave height, there may be some requirements to be on piles, but then it steps from 12 down to 11 for the back of the site. The existing ground is around 5, so we'd have to elevate that house way up. So what we're doing instead is bringing it up the hill. There's a natural rise to the west, and the slab or basement will be just above the flood elevation. So even in a 100-year event, we wouldn't expect any water to go into the garage, and then the rest of the house is going to be stepped up to 12 to give us an extra foot of freeboard. And so that if we have furnaces and stuff, they'll be up on blocks, probably even higher, but would be above what you call the design flood elevation, which is the base flood elevation plus 1 foot. That's what you're required to be flood resistant above nowadays. And always good for coastal resiliency to keep things a little higher. There is a gradual sea level rise that's been documented. Other resource areas are, besides the riverfront and the flood zone, which I spoke of, are a salt marsh, which is delineated. And Brad Hall was out there on 10/17/22. Actually, I'm sorry, 1/6. It was a while back of 20, and hung those flags. And we also delineated coastal banks on the property. So there's a salt marsh, and then upgradient of that, as you would expect, there's a small slope. Some areas of the site are so gradual that when you go up to the flood zone, it's less than 10% and there's no coastal bank. But in the area of the house, it's a technical coastal bank. These are the ones, if you look at the DEP diagrams, you look at where the flood zone hits, and if the ground gets a little bit steeper than 10%, boom, you've got a flood zone at that flood elevation line, and that persists up until a 25% slope. Were we in the town of Barnstable, they wouldn't be too concerned with this because it's under 18%. It just off the site, it gets a little bit steeper, probably with some fill, but in our area, it's between 10 and 16%. So it's a very gradual slope, but it's technically a coastal bank. But again, it's splitting the difference between being up there much higher or down in front where there's breaking waves and we're on the toe of the coastal bank between that and the river. So I think it's much preferred to pull this house back up into the area that we've got it. We're rotating it to get some living space, and they would be perfectly willing to seek variances to get a little bit closer to the street, but I don't really see the zoning board having a large appetite for that, although we could inquire. Again, the denitrifying septic is tucked in there, and there are requirements for that, and it would probably cut into the basement space to move it any closer to the street. We're pretty much as close as we can be. To get some extra space and not take up footprint, they've got an efficient design and taking advantage of the slope of the lot. We've got a drive-under garage, and there's a little bit of living space over it. I should state that there's an existing 5 bedrooms there. There's cesspools that are quite close to the river, unfortunately. It definitely needs to be upgraded, but they're going above and beyond. They're stepping down from the 5 to 4 bedrooms and moving it, as you can see, just as far as possible from all the resource areas. So the other one is land subject to coastal storm flowage. We spoke of that. Riverfront. The nice thing about this is that because they've got, as you can see from that photograph, a large gravel driveway, a big house, patios, and so forth down near the waterfront, Our mitigation calculations are quite favorable. The hardscape in the 0 to 100 from the river is existing is 4783. We're going all the way down to 420. So there's a reduction of 4,363 square foot. So a big improvement. The area that's down there now, what we're going to do with it is pull up the patio. We're going to plant American beach grass, which does very well. It gets spray. It's quite low, salt tolerant, and a nice buffer. And then the rest of the area, we're going to do unfertilized Cape Cod lawn. So these folks, again, they're very sensitive to the nitrogen issue. We'll use fescue type Cape Cod lawn and just natural slow release fertilizer. We'd be happy to live with a condition on that. And then, in the future, we could perhaps look at doing some other plantings down there. But that was our thought for now. I think it's a fair compromise rather than a house and a driveway, just to have a fescue, native type lawn. And then the 650 square foot of beach grass right against the edge would keep that little tiny beach that's there. They do use that, so it'd be nice to maintain that. For the driveway, it's a pervious gravel driveway, but rather than let it pitch down, we did put in a trench drain with properly sized infiltration back up into the hill outside of the 50. It's a little bit of an awkward turn in. Would love to preserve a buffer to the south, the Highland Avenue extension. Sometimes people park down there and walk around, and so we could keep a nice natural buffer with this style driveway and just have a short turning T. But just to make sure any of that pervious, semi-pervious driveway runoff that does extend down would pick it up with a trench drain before it got down to near the coastal bank or the salt marsh. Our narrative went over some alternatives, which, quite reasonably would be to rebuild the house in place, taking advantage of those fantastic views, but it would be, not too attractive and not too environmentally sensitive, so that was not chosen. We do go through some other alternatives. I'd be glad to go through them if you'd like, but we're hoping, and just to finish the mitigation calculations, that was a healthy 4,000 foot reduction in the 0 to 100. In the 100 to 200, there is a modest increase because, of course, that's where we're moving the house back there. So it's 2943, but it's still a net reduction in hardscape of 1,420 square foot on the site. And then to add to that, we're putting in 650 square foot of mitigation in the most sensitive areas there against the river. So hopefully it'll be well received. Again, state-of-the-art denitrifying septic. I think we're crossing all the T's and dotting the I's on this one, and I would certainly be glad to answer any questions if you do have them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Turn it over to the board. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes. Correct.
Dan, first of all, I'd like to thank the applicant for choosing an alternative septic system. I think it's really a critical step for the health of the river. However, I would very much like to see the applicant consider removing the man-made groins. As you can see, and I'm sure you know very well, groins like that interrupt the natural flow of sediment north and south in that situation. I think it would be a very important consideration for the applicant. If you look at this aerial photograph you provided us, you can see that there's quite a difference to the north, that northern stone-made groin compared to the south side of it and the south side groin. It just would be, I think, an addition to the health of the river. That's all I have.
Well, I have a concern about the driveway being within the 35-foot buffer to the coastal bank. They have that trench drain there and a wall, it looks like, that they have there, but it's only 25.9 from the top of the coastal bank. I'd like to see that pulled back.
See that? Oh, yeah.
They also, you said you have alternative analysis besides the one you have written, which is do nothing. What were the alternatives?
Well, the owner did want me to mention that, they could certainly leave it, as is, rather than even raise it and, rent it out and, have a 5-bedroom house right down there on the river. But, they don't want to do that. They want to do the right thing and pull it back. The other one would be raising it up on piles in the same area. Generally, it's not an unreasonable request to simply, because of the new flood zone changes, raise up a house. In this case, they have the ability to move it back somewhat, so, they may get some pushback on that, but it would certainly be an alternative. We did explore that, and they decided that they would rather have it be pulled back much further. Yeah, we appreciate that. Mark Burgess was actually just down on the site looking to see, what would happen if we took down some of these coastal structures. Just to speak to that briefly. And we could certainly, and the owners are certainly interested in looking at that. I don't want to mire this particular proposal down with that, but I would just say to you that they're very open to that sort of thing down there. They want to make sure that the whole place doesn't wash away if they do that. So we're gonna analyze it a little bit with Mark's coastal experience and take a look at things. We could come back with some, either amended or probably a fresh order to do work down in the riparian zone. But just so that we can move along, we've been studying this for a long time. They decided to, purchase the lot next door and utilize that as part of one and looking at all this. Certainly, the other alternative would be to, have put a small house next door and kept this one, or a small house next door and a smaller house on their lot. So that there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle and ways that they could have worked on this, but I think what they came up with is pretty good. We could certainly study moving that trench drain and elbow up a little bit if the other board members are as concerned, but our initial thought was, boy, it's so much better than what's there now with the house, inches from the water and the driveway, inches from the salt marsh, and all pulled back to a 26-foot. That perhaps it would tip in our favor as is, but I would certainly listen to the board on that.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Two questions. One has to do with the trees being removed, obviously, to build the house. Are there any mitigation, any trees being put back anywhere?
So we hadn't formally proposed any trees. I don't know what the thought would be on that. We could certainly look at it. We're going to try and preserve outside the work limit line. There's a number of mature oaks and trees that would, maintain a nice canopy. Certainly in front of the house probably wouldn't be the spot for a big one, because that would block a view. But, perhaps to the side, we could look at that. In terms of some native plantings, maybe some eastern red cedars along the lot line and to the north.
My second question has to do with the proposed driveway.
Yeah.
Is it going through the marsh? Is it?
No, that's a 50-foot off salt marsh that's located there. So it's 26 feet from the bank. It'd be probably 30 from the salt marsh at the nearest point there. I don't know if that's clear or not, but the salt marsh runs, it's the area that runs basically parallel to the bank, but about 5 feet further down, just at the toe of the slope there. So we're well clear of that. We wouldn't propose that unless it was an emergency.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? I do like the fact that they're switching to the IA system. I think that's a huge benefit, especially for down along the river. I would encourage it. I mean, if you would choose to at some point remove those groins, I think that would be an excellent thing. I think the whole commission would be quite supportive of that.
Yeah, not to interrupt, but would certainly want to talk with the Larsons to our north and make sure they were comfortable with all that.
I mean, I'm not putting the two together at this point.
Yeah.
I think, that you are doing quite a significant improvement to the site overall. I usually like to see that 35-foot line held firm, but given the location and the fact that we're removing an entire house from the first 100 foot, makes me say, okay, I probably am not as concerned about that. I mean, if you could move it anywhere, that would be great. A little bit of that would be great, but I think there are significant benefits in that. You know, me, of course, I would probably like to see more buffer down in the area where it's being removed, but it's, again, you are doing a significant amount of removal of hardscape. So again, I'm not saying no. I don't disagree with any of it. So I think I'm going to leave it at that for now.
Well, perhaps if I could just throw out there, the southern edge, you can see the work limit line. There's a kind of a rock wall along there. And I don't know, but just to throw out there, could we do a 4-foot planting strip and remove those rocks? Would that something be acceptable along that edge? That might help tip the scales in favor of leaving the driveway.
No south.
As long as
Here?
the wall isn't providing some sort of a protection from
Yeah.
tidal action or wave action.
So Mr. Zona said that as long as Mark can determine that it's not too protective or important protection from erosion, that above-ground wall there. But I think what we could offer right off the bat would be a 4-foot strip along that rock wall.
Along the,
So
So
we're
that
sure
would be,
exactly where everybody is ready or understands where we're talking.
So.
along the river?
Right, no, there's a rock wall that comes off of this, and it's kind of a prominent rock wall all along here.
That's right,
And
yeah.
it's the lawn is right up to it. So where we have the buffer all along here, except for the beach, perhaps if we did a 4-foot strip here, then that could be seen as a nice, as an excuse to get just a little bit closer than you normally allow there. And that would be on top of the 1420 square foot of hardscape reduction that is in there so far.
See, I have any
you
pictures
know,
of that side. I don't.
As long as we're on the right track there, with the
that's-
owners, I
that's the lower
think
part
that
of the
might
wall
be
there.
something we could
Why don't we replace it?
offer.
Sorry, I don't have any pictures of that side.
Yeah, but it's just basically, it's just
That's gonna
driveway
be-
right now,
Okay,
right up to a rock wall. And so, rather than have lawn go right up to the rock wall, would put a 4-foot planting strip in this area here, right, because it's right against the marsh. So that, I think, could be well received.
I'm sorry, Brittany, what were you saying?
I'm just asking the commission their opinion, if they wouldn't think it would be better to have it on the riverside. Where,
So we've already got a strip there, though, right?
I don't see the buffer planting strip you
So
have.
this
It-
is all here,
Hard
where there's
stuff.
existing hardscape. It's 650
That's gonna
square foot,
become-
this whole area
It's
here.
beach grass, right, in the sand.
Yes, but again, in terms of being able to absorb some of the, if there was any the slow release fertilizer, it was brushed off, that beach grass will soak it right up, and there wouldn't be any application in those areas. So that was what I was offering to come along here. If you think it's a benefit, I think it would be, rather than have lawn right up to the rocks. And then we'll certainly work with Mark, and, with your permission, would come back, but we might be able to remove some of those rocks, because they're, I don't think they're doing much down there, especially with the house removed, but we'll look at that.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and I think that's significant what you're asking in terms of removal, but I think at this point, I'd rather not try and tie that directly into this proposal. I think it would make more sense to just expand a little bit more the buffer that's there that you're proposing.
Agreed, yeah, we'd
you're
have to
calling for-
study that
for
anyway,
Cape
so.
Cod lawn there, right?
Right now, the proposal would be to go right up to the work limit line with just a Cape Cod, a fescue lawn, not fertilized, just very natural. But instead now would have 4 feet of beach grass against those rocks. And if we could leave the rest of the site alone, perhaps that would be a good compromise to the
I think I would
commission.
rather see a little bit more, just add a little bit more to that buffer strip. More
Yeah,
width to
I
that
agree.
Buffer strip, and then, maybe a diversity of some plants there, some smaller shrubs and things like that.
Bearberry or something salt tolerant and
And,
bayberry.
yeah,
maybe
and then
some shorter.
if it's something that you can do and you're moving forward, something you'd like to remove the rocks and the groins and things like that would be like a separate.
I agree, yeah, it would be a different DEP filing and waterways and a few other items. Not that they would, it's gonna improve navigation, not hurt it, but everybody would like to take a look at that before we move in that direction.
Dan, may I say something about?
Absolutely, just introduce yourself and sit right down. Oh, no problem.
Okay.
Okay, so
through the chair. We
Does
gotta
anybody
make
have
sure
any
Ed says okay.
Concerns about that or any comments?
No, I agree with your comments.
Okay. I'm gonna go to Brittany next.
And the owner had a comment at some
Oh,
point.
is it more related to that, the buffer strip?
It's
discussion?
related to that brick wall. If you could put the plan up that shows just the plan and shows the wall. I just wanted to, because
You want to point with this?
Can you bring your microphone with you?
yeah, I can do that.
Yeah,
You got to speak into that.
Oh,
And say
okay,
who you are, too,
yeah.
if you didn't.
Oh, I'm Meredith Zona, one of the owners.
Can you find the button? There's a separate little button.
Oh, that little thing? Oh, okay. So we were just looking at this, and I'm a real plant person, and so it's kind of a little hodgepodge of rocks that's here, and I'm pretty sure it was for the protection of the driveway that they used for the people that came in and rented the house there. And on the other side of the rocks, it's pretty much bittersweet for this about 4 feet or so, and then it becomes more, I would say, more vegetated wetland right in here, and those rocks are actually maybe keeping the bittersweet from coming over into the driveway.
Yeah, at this point, I would rather not include that as part of this project.
They act like a nice work
See
limit.
the expansion of the buffer, of the proposed buffer that you have right now. Let's expand it a little bit more. And then we'll take other things up.
Excellent, yeah, and it's very synergetic because they're actually interested in doing that as well as the commission is interested in it. So we'll certainly have some movement on that in the future, but not related directly to this proposal.
Brittany?
Yeah, so I guess just for this buffer strip, are you, so is it, you're gonna propose a 4-foot buffer strip of shrub?
So to be clear, that one there is a lot more than 4. It's
An
probably
additional 4.
So what I was talking about was adding a 4-foot strip along this edge, all along the salt marsh down here. See what I mean? And so it would be some of that, but, you know, we're not married to beach grass. It would be, any coastal plant would do well there, as long as we don't have a huge towering row of arborvitaes or something. So we'd certainly look at doing some winterberry, bearberry, little plantings along there. And I think that generally it well received, that, against a hard wetland edge like that, to have some plantings instead of even a Cape Cod lawn is usually well received. So we'd be happy to do that, just to get this little incursion for the driveway.
I don't think that any plantings on this side would be beneficial. If there's bittersweet there, they're just going to shortly be taken over by the bittersweet.
Well, to be clear, there's a nice big rock wall between the bittersweet and them, so we'd be able to weed whack that. And you could put a condition in there to keep the bittersweet out of it. We'd be happy to live with that. Once the rocks are gone, you're probably right, the bittersweet would come in, but right now it's a very nice vertical and horizontal barrier, like Mrs. Zona said, between the growth and the open gravel driveway. It's basically a big windrow of rocks there, so nice clear demarcation, and it'd be easy to put a buffer on our side. If that turns your opinion, if not, I won't push it anymore.
Okay, I think my opinion about this is that a little bit more of a buffer strip would be mitigation for all of the lost trees that we're not seeing any of right now.
That would be my
So I
view.
think we need a little bit more.
Add to the existing mitigation area that you have there, or the buffer strip that you've got there.
Sure.
Add to it, and then I think that's a fair trade for if you add 4 feet to everything, then I think that's a fair trade for the trees that you're taking.
Yeah, and we certainly don't want a barren lot. We'll be looking at putting in some natives around the house, and, we'll work on that. But I think that's fair. So what should we say then? Additional 4 feet all along that? Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
Along what's proposed now, in addition to the 650?
You're good with that?
Yeah.
All right, and what's the call along the rock wall? Take it or leave it on that south rock wall area?
Not disturb it at this time.
Just leave it for now,
Yeah,
yeah, and we can address it later when we do the rocks, yeah. Good point, it'll be destroyed if we move the rocks, so let's leave that alone.
So does the commission want a revised plan showing the driveway further away from the salt marsh, or?
Yes.
the
expanded
additional,
mitigation as well.
and the additional mitigation.
Now you're having your cake and eating it too.
Repeat that again, Brittany, so I can write it down.
Well, you guys have to make the motion so you can say what you want to see.
So you want you're suggesting the drive pulled back, 6 feet? So it's just on the 35?
I don't have a scale.
Well, right now it's about 25, so that'd be about 10. That's going to be some serious rejiggering, but if,
Change the location of the turnaround, Dan? Is that a possibility?
removing some additional trees, it probably would be, but, you know, we might save a tree down there.
Can you just flip, that's what I think that's what Rick is asking. Can you just flip the turnaround to the other side?
I think we could flip it,
Do that.
if we had to put it somewhere, I think it would probably go to the west or the south. It's very awkward to go right up in front of the home with that, because we got a big ramp up, but we could probably work it in the area of the leaching basin. So if you give me 10 more feet, I think we can just make that work with a revised plan and keep it 35
Good with that.
from the bank, and I'll make something work there. Now, I would say that we're going to be a few more square foot of impervious probably, because it's, you know, just rearranging, but not very much. And you will get the 4-foot extra buffer, so that'll
I'm fine
more
with
than
that. I think it's a
compensate.
fair trade that way.
Yeah, and then we'll work to sneak a couple of trees in too.
Okay, Brittany, anything else?
No, that's all.
Anybody in the audience? Anybody in Zoom? Raise your hand digitally, please. If not, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the project with
Should we wait for a revised plan?
accepting a revised plan?
Okay.
Showing the change in the driveway location and the addition of the 4-foot strip of additional buffer strip.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second, Pat.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
All right, I appreciate you working with us. Thank you very much.
So mentioned first the 200-foot riverfront there, if we chose to, but it's.
You're having a hard time with that, aren't you, David?
I'm gonna throw it away
Yeah, You've never done a road map in your life, right?
See how quickly I did that for you?
Thank you.
Next order of business
Oh, that's new to this.
is a continued stormwater management permit application, JDB 212 Mid-Tech Drive LLC, care of Turtle Rock LLC, for 186 and 212 Mid-Tech Drive, Yarmouth, proposed redevelopment of existing office building site with proposed 11,400 square foot contractor bays building with new paved parking lot, new septic system, new drainage systems, and new site lighting and landscape. This was continued from October 20th, and
They need
it's being another two.
waiting for consultant comments.
Okay, so we're still waiting for consultant comments on that one, so we will need to continue this to November 17th. Do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. All right, let's get the two easy ones out first. So we have two certificate of compliance for issuance. They're easy issuance for SE 83-176 for 175 Route 28, and for SE 83-484 184 Blue Rock Road. Do I have a motion to issue the certificates of compliance for SE 83-176 and SE 83-484? This is where somebody would say so moved.
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
I'm sorry,
Aye.
who said moved?
I did.
Rick and then Ally.
Yes.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
I just want to make sure I got those right, because there's two 184 blocks.
So it's SE 83-176
Yeah,
and SE 83-484.
okay, thank you.
Okay. 7-6, so I gotta make sure I give you the right ones now.
There should be two of these, right?
It's coming.
Two of them again?
Page.
Don't trust me, huh? Okay, you shouldn't.
One page.
Six. Gonna hold on to this one for now. Since we have the other one. Yeah, so no, hold on to that for now. All right, next order of business is a continued certificate of compliance for SE 83-2101 for 170 Pleasant Street, Yarmouth. There is still an issue, I think, with this, right, Brittany?
Yes, they nourished the fiber rolls that were exposed and replaced some high tide bush that had died. But sorry, I'm just looking for photos. But they didn't plant any beach grass into the nourished fiber rolls, so there's nothing to keep the sand in place for the future. So I'm worried that it will just revert back to its previous state before the project was done. So I think they need to plant some beach grass.
Okay, yeah, I would agree. This is Crawford, is that who's,
Yes.
Jen, or anybody from Crawford for
Yeah,
this
we
one?
got two of them on there.
Nick is here.
Hello?
Hi, Nick and/or Jen.
This is Nick. How you doing?
Hi, good, thank you. And so, did you understand what we were saying? That we were looking for a little bit of enhanced planting. It was for beach grass, right?
Yeah.
I do. I understand what you're saying. But in the same breath, I believe we had confirmed with Brittany that nourishing and replacing the high tide bush would get the COC per an email exchange we had in the middle of August. Because there was one site visit out there before the nourishment was placed, and this hadn't been discussed. It would be my preference, and I would very much appreciate if we could close this certificate with ongoing conditions that it be able to be planted. Bare root American beach grass isn't available until typically mid-November. And we are going into storm season, so potentially installing it right now at this time anyway, even if we were able to, it would have no time to root in before the storm season. So if it were to be planted with beach grass, I would certainly recommend that it be done in the spring, but I would hope that that could be done going forward under ongoing conditions, as well as nourishment in the future so that they can remain covered as well. Even if they were planted with beach grass right now and they're nourished right now, that doesn't necessarily, and the certificate was issued, it doesn't necessarily mean that they would continually be covered going into next spring either.
Okay, so if we were to entertain that direction, what are you going to do then? If we're saying we're not going to plant until spring, what are you doing to prevent the erosion during the storm season?
So we're not necessarily preventing it in any one instance with these fiber rolls. The nourishment over the top is sacrificial, and it's to replace, I'm sure you know, it's to replace the sand that would naturally nourish the salt marsh and the beaches anyway. So, you know, it is, yeah, it's taking the place of the natural system insofar as the coastal bank has been, you know, revetted, so to speak, with a soft solution. So that's why I would certainly recommend that we be able to close it with continuing conditions that we are able to keep nourishing it and replanting with beach grass as needed if you see fit. And there is, I would like to say one thing. When I was out there in the spring, and I believe we have pictures from even later in the summer, there is quite a bit of seaside goldenrod growing between the rolls. We plugged rooted plugs through and between the fiber rolls 2 falls ago under Kelly Grant, and so those were covered through the nourishment, and you wouldn't necessarily be able to see those at this time. So they're not completely devoid of vegetation. They may look like it because it is nourished, but there's certainly some vegetation that was covered up through the nourishment.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was asking something. I forgot which one we were doing here. So sorry. I'm sorry.
No worries.
So Brittany, you're good with what they're proposing?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I'm sorry if there was miscommunication. I met with the homeowner on site several times, and I thought if I didn't make myself clear, I apologize. But I think future planting of beach grass would be fine. Anything to keep, you know, I saw the plants that were coming through the fiber roll initially, and there's some, but some more would be good in the future. But I think your proposal to keep an ongoing condition is fine.
Okay. All right. Any discussion? I mean, I'm fine with that. So if that's the case, then could I get a motion to issue the COC with ongoing conditions?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I have a question first, Mr. Chairman. What's to ensure us that if this COC is issued and the property is sold, that we have any jurisdiction over the new owner?
Enforcement order.
Enforcement order. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's the only thing we could do, but it would be an enforcement order that would, I'm sure, would be swift and sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate your time.
Okay. Is there a
voted
second?
on
You got to finish.
Is there a second to that?
Who first? Who gave the first? Oh, okay.
David and
Second.
Pat? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries unanimously with ongoing conditions. All right, last certificate of compliance is for SE 83-2065 for 184 Blue Rock Road. And we got some real problems with this one.
Right.
So, Brittany, you want to bring us up to speed on this one?
Sorry, it appears Laserfish didn't update at all today. I had photos, but they're not here. So for this project, it was a coastal stabilization project using fiber rolls, salt marsh restoration, and mitigation planting for an unpermitted deck. The order of conditions required monitoring reports to keep the coastal stabilization project and the salt marsh restoration. None were completed, and it looks like there's significant scour. So the salt marsh restoration is significantly smaller than originally planned because a lot of it did not take. There's missing at least 200 square feet of salt marsh restorations and some failure of the core logs. There is also a timber wall that was required to be moved back 5 feet away from the coastal bank, and it remains in the same spot that it was previously, which is not on the approved plan. So I would recommend not to issue the certificate of compliance at this time.
Okay. Have you put that in writing for Jen? Have you done anything, any email to let her know about that?
I have not.
I don't disagree with any of that, Brittany, so I would I would recommend the same. I think we should deny it, but if there's any further discussion.
I don't know if it was a residual hand raise, but there is a hand
Jen has
raised.
her hand raised. I don't know if
Well,
she has.
we're getting to her, but,
Nope, she just has her hand unraised.
Okay.
Okay.
hey, Jen, no?
Nope.
Jen Crawford?
Hello. Yes, I'm here. So we've kind of remained involved in this project on the periphery. So I was staying on just to kind of listen. And so I know a little bit about the condition of the property, and we have been in touch with the owner about it. I wouldn't say that there is failure with the fiber rolls. They're just aging at this point. And I'm curious to know, Brittany, and sorry, this is just kind of coming up, but since I'm on and you asked, I'm here. I'm wondering about the salt marsh. Are you referring to the salt marsh area that's down along the property line by where the neighboring bulkhead is?
Sorry, hold on. I found the photos. Trying to find. This is the salt marsh area, kind of a faraway view, but it was. I know the intent. I can see the leftover stakes from putting in the jute matting, but a lot of the salt marsh didn't take. And, we wanted to have monitoring reports. Obviously, I wasn't here then when the monitoring reports would have been due, to just keep updated on the salt marsh to address any issues that they could during the time that it was being scoured away.
So I think that one of the things with the salt marsh on that far end, I think that there are potential complications with wave energy coming off of that bulkhead.
Yeah.
And so I think that because the first couple seasons it did really, really well. And so I have a feeling that maybe the longevity of it is potentially being caused by something else. I haven't done any site investigations to more fully understand that, but if you're willing to give comments back, because I think J.M. O'Reilly is the one that filed for the certificate of compliance on this one. And so if you guys are willing to give some comments back, we can certainly be back in touch with the client to get a better understanding of where he's at with this process, and maybe propose some ways that we can bring it to the level that you need it to be at. I don't know anything regarding the retaining wall piece of it, but certainly the salt marsh piece and the fiber roll installation piece we were clearly a part of. So, and I don't think that there's any failure with the fiber rolls, it's just aging. And so there's some ways that we can help with that in a more long-term way, I think.
Okay, I didn't mean to say that the whole fiber roll was failing. It just appeared that they were missing a roll in a couple of spots.
Yep, the bottom roll there.
Yeah,
Yep.
the bottom roll had washed away, or something happened to it. But it just, you're right, it's aging.
Yep.
It just doesn't meet the, requirements that were in the original order. So especially with the wall, it's not just the restoration. The wall that wasn't moved back as per the approved plan is also a contributing factor too.
Right. Yep. Because that was, I know the wall that you're talking about. So yeah, and we didn't have any involvement in that piece of it. So I don't have any comment regarding that. But if you guys can get your comments back to J.M. O'Reilly, if you want to CC me on the email, I'm more than happy to help do what I can from my end to get back in touch with the engineer and the client.
Yeah. So obviously the wave energy here is too much for the salt marsh and the fiber roll to be effective in the initial way that it was implemented, but
I think with the fiber rolls, it's that bottom roll is the one that gets the most tidal action. So it sees water, sees sunlight, sees water, sees sunlight, and it's that back and forth. So the longevity of it is about as expected in terms of its deterioration, but there can replacement of it or other methods to help stabilize that toe can be put into place as that fiber roll degrades or as it has degraded. And in terms of the salt marsh, that's an interesting area because I think that it has to do with that neighboring bulkhead more than anything. Because there are certainly places, that the salt marsh is doing very well and does very well in a lot of places up and down Bass River. So I think that the neighboring bulkhead is the is the factor that's coming into play. That would be my guess, at least without doing, a little bit more extensive investigation, but that would be my guess as to what's coming into play with the salt marsh on the end. And it could be an elevation thing too. So we could shoot some elevations and see if that is a factor.
I mean, I think, number one, we do definitely have to deny this for several reasons. I do remember having discussion when this was first coming through for permitting, and I was skeptical about the salt marsh then, and apparently I was right.
To be
Not
true.
blow my own. But, I mean, the other thing too
Oh,
is that
come
we've
on.
always.
Some of it's doing really well.
In the middle, yeah.
We've
it
also
is.
got to remember that, these soft solution type embankments and improvements they are required to be maintained. You can't just, they're not revetments. So, I mean, I think that's,
Get a little.
I think we've learned that
Yep.
a lot through the years that we've been permitting, as we've been permitting more of these. So it's just something for us
Yep.
to keep in mind in the future, that we always have to make sure that there's some sort of ongoing maintenance. But with, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I think I recall that they were supposed to plant grass in those core logs as well, and I don't see any evidence of that.
I mean, again, it's just, it's, those are at their end of their useful life. I mean, and so what really needs to happen now is some severe maintenance and replacement. So, I don't know, that's just my opinion. It doesn't really change anything in terms of whether or not we deny it or not, but yes.
So, the,
By yourself, please.
I'm sorry,
Identify
Mark
yourself.
Burgess, Shorefront Consulting. I was hired by the applicant here to provide a filing for restoration or maintenance of this activity. We're in a conundrum because you don't want us to file a new notice of intent until we close out the old one. What I would suggest, you guys can vote on the wall, whatever you want. What I'd suggest is that if this order can be closed out, the ongoing condition would be to file a new notice of intent, because the order has expired for this, so they can't do any more work. So he's a little bit stuck that way, but my suggestion would be to require a filing of a new notice of intent to restore / maintain the original solution. Now also, since Jen is on the line, I've looked at this, obviously, and I think that north of the marsh, between the marsh and the bulkhead, that might be an area where you would do a living shoreline instead of just marsh planting. And what that does is provide a reinforced cobble base that's wrapped in soil, that has soil and wrapped in jute, and then you plant in that. And it provides a higher, more robust elevation for the marsh grass to stay put. Jen and I would have to look into that, obviously, but that would be my suggestion as a coastal person for that portion. The rest of it, I think it would survive fine if it was put back the way it was, and again has to be maintained. The fiber rolls are squishy, but I don't think they have to leave. I think they'll be fine. In fact, the squishier they get, that's a scientific term. The squishier they get, the easier they are to plant into. So I think there's opportunity here to put it back and fix it, but we can't do it. We can't do any work under the existing order. Whatever the board decides with the retaining wall, I've seen it, I know what you're talking about, so whatever you decide with that is one thing. But just know that I've been hired to move forward with this, but I can't until we close this out.
The maintenance should have been happening the entire time, but yeah, I understand what you're saying.
So what
Does it re-
guarantees do we have that they will maintain it if we close out this order and do a new order?
You know, honestly, I don't know that anybody has any guarantees. You have your requirements. If you don't have a report in a year, then you should be able to file an enforcement. If you're going to continue to require these monitoring reports. But unfortunately, everybody's hugely busy, and this stuff slips through the cracks by both parties. But that is your recourse, is to
When did this expire?
set your clock for a year later, and if you don't get a report, file a enforcement.
Can we get them to?
Chairman wants to know when this expired.
Is this 2019?
I
Yeah,
clicked on the
I don't
wrong
think it
thing.
was in place when COVID hit.
Sorry.
No, yeah, it was recorded
There
in
it is.
2016, 11/29/2016, so it expired 2019.
19,
Right.
3
Yeah.
years.
So we're 3 years after the fact already.
Yes.
So, I mean, I if people would just file their certificate of compliance request when they're supposed to do it, then we wouldn't be in this situation, would we?
It's possible that the whole thing was in better shape back then, and they might have just got it, but
And
I
you
don't
may
know.
very well, but,
I know. And
I mean, moving forward, it's difficult to we can't require work because there's nothing to work under at this point. There's no permit to work under. So my only other alternative then is to then require an enforcement order be issued so that
They
the
can
work
do,
can be picked up, and I think that's how we should go.
I agree, I think an
Yeah, I agree.
enforcement order, I don't think the history of this property should get anything but an enforcement order.
so
I think we deny the certificate of compliance request, issue the enforcement order, which will allow then the completion of this project. We can get the COC at that point, and then we can move forward. And if you want to go ahead and, that's a good. We'll
I do that?
get the COC.
can they do that without filing then? Because the work is then authorized under an enforcement order? That saves a whole notice of intent, which is awesome.
You'll be working under the enforcement order.
Yeah, but I don't have to file a notice. I'm talking myself out of a job, but I'm fine with that, so.
Well, I mean, regardless of who does it, I mean, the enforcement order allows the work to be done to complete the work that was supposed to be done for this.
That's perfect.
Once you do that, the COC will then be able to be issued, and then if you're moving forward with maintenance and a new project, then you could certainly file for it at that point.
That's a better solution than what I was offering, so I'm,
Yeah. Okay. All right, so unless there's any further discussion, could I have number one, or first, let's vote on the denial. So there's a motion to deny the certificate of compliance.
We don't, I'm
so moved.
sorry, we don't vote to accept and then vote no?
We can do that. I prefer to do it that way, but it always seems to confuse everybody. So is there a motion to accept or to issue the COC?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor to issue the COC,
I
say
think you guys are
aye.
confused.
Hmm?
Okay.
see where he's going. Yeah.
All those to deny the COC, not issue the COC, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, so it's
That's how we have
denied.
to do it.
And then do I have a motion to issue an enforcement order to cover the work that remains so that the COC can be complete, or we can complete the work so the COC can be issued?
So moved.
One question on that, though?
Yeah.
Is there a time limit on that?
That's a good point. We should put as part of the enforcement order, when you write the enforcement order, Brittany, just if you could put in a deadline for, what are you gonna need?
December 31st.
Probably almost a year, aren't you?
Yeah, ask Jen. That's not me, so ask Jen.
Yeah, I would say, Jen, do you want to weigh in on that? A year?
It's too long.
Yes, it would be best if any sort of additional planting component or salt marsh component could be done in the spring. That would absolutely be the best time to do that.
Did anybody catch what she
I
said?
think she said spring.
Okay, so.
Yeah, spring for any sort of salt marsh component. Sorry.
Okay, so when we write the enforcement order, just write it to be completed by
July 1st.
July 1st.
June.
July
30th or
1st.
July 1st.
Yeah.
And then also require that they start, that they. Okay, so we'll be working off the old plan, so they don't need to come up necessarily with any kind of a restoration plan, so they'll just be coming off that.
Need a second. I'll second.
Who voted aye first?
Nobody did. Rick made the motion. I
Okay.
voted, I seconded
Seconded,
it.
okay.
We haven't voted yet.
So we got the second?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously, so the enforcement order will issue with the July 1st deadline.
Got it.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Mark.
Hope you can make note of this. I did two
This
voting
one's
things.
just from the other, you just have to sign this one from the previous one that we approved. All right.
This is the previous one, so that's it.
Next order of business, we're moving into enforcement. The first one on the enforcement is 30 Higgins Kroll Road, West Yarmouth. It's a review of an updated restoration plan.
Hello, my name is Paul Mancuso from BSC Group, here representing Steve Kradamos for 30 Higgins Crowell Road. Apologize for whatever computer issue I was having last hearing. So initially, Mr. Kradamos hired a landscaper to remove some trees along the backside of units 2 and 3 at 30 Higgins Crowell Road because the buildings were sustaining a little damage from fallen branches and things, and they were going over top of the building. So he initially just hired the landscaper to remove the trees at the back of the building. He did not realize he was working within the 100-foot buffer to the wetland or in conservation jurisdiction. The landscaper removed many more trees than he anticipated, and that's when you guys were tipped off what was going on, and he received the enforcement order. He ceased and desisted immediately and hired BSC Group to help him resolve the issue. And since then, we went out to the site. We counted and surveyed all the stumps. There were 50 trees that were cut down within the 100-foot buffer zone to the cedar swamp. And then about a month later, we went out and rechecked the site to see which of those stumps were showing signs of regrowth. Approximately 20 of the trees were showing signs of regrowth. And so 18 of those will be proposed to be managed to regrow. And aside from those 18, we are proposing to plant 10 red maple trees along the edge of the wetland, as those trees will go pretty tall. And again, he doesn't want to have any large trees growing right up next to his buildings. So the 10 red maple trees are proposed along the wetland edge, and then a little further from the wetland, he's proposing 10 flowering dogwoods. Sort of in the around the middle between the buildings and the wetland, and then interspersed along the walkways, driveways, and in among the trees, he's proposing 87 shrubs, a mix of, along the walkways, he's going to have pasture rows along each walkway to each building, and then he's also going to have some rhododendrons spaced out around the backside of the buildings, as well as some mountain laurel and inkberry, and there will be some sweet pepper bush mixed into the buffer zone as well. He is also proposing to seed the area with a native wildflower seed mix. New England Wetland Plants has a few good seed mixes for sandy soils, so we'd probably use one of those. And that is the restoration plan. There were two other requests Mr. Kradamos had. The backside of units 2 and 3, the topography in that area slopes down towards the buildings, and so after every rainstorm, he has puddles of water, just standing water along the backs of the buildings, which is not good for the foundation. He was hoping to just grade that so that it no longer slopes towards the buildings, and it doesn't collect rainwater there as much as it currently does. And also, he would like to put a 1 or 2 foot wide gravel strip along the back of the building just to help with drainage in that area, since that area is sort of prone to collecting stormwater after storms. But that's essentially what we've proposed for the restoration. At this point, if the commission has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, I mean, to get to the regrading issue, I guess I don't have an issue with you doing that. It's a minor regrading, as long as you stay out of the 50. It's just if you're only regrading between 50 and 100, that's okay. I don't have a problem with you putting the like a foot long or foot wide trench, gravel trench or gravel drip line there as well. But I think in exchange for that, I was going to bring this up either way. Given the habitat that's there right now on the part that had been impacted, I would like to see some sort of seed mix put in, so interspersed throughout the planting area, because I think we're gonna be worrying about invasives as it is. I think anything we could put down to help stabilize soil and.
You mean sooner rather, because he plans to put a native wildflower seed mix throughout as well.
Okay, did I miss that someplace?
I think I don't think that was written in the narrative, so that was going to be one of my comments too.
Oh, okay. It may not have been. I thought I'd put that in there, but if not, that is part of the plan. I can definitely add that in there.
Yeah, I mean, I would.
Would definitely need that.
Yeah, I would definitely add that. So I think that certainly that would need to be done either way. I would go heavy on that only because of the extra things that you're asking for in terms of grading. My other issue is that with the planting palette, there's no mention of caliper size or anything. I'm just saying what you're spacing, but I don't see what caliper that you're planting or what size plants you're planting. So you could add something in there that add something to the palette that lets us know how many of each of the things that you're planting.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I was talking with Matt Creighton, my coworker, who's done a lot of these restoration plans, and he was telling me not to limit myself by saying a specific size, because when it comes time to plant, it may be based on availability. I mean, ideally we get 5-gallon pots for all of the trees, for the red maples and the flowering dogwoods. The shrubs, I'm not sure exactly what size they come in, or gallons pot, but maybe gallon or 2-gallon pot for the shrubs. But I'm just hesitant to say we're going to use this exact size tree, and then when it comes time to plant, we can't find those exact size trees.
Well, that's when you come back to us and say we can't find that's not available, and then we can discuss it at that point. But
You can always call me if there's availability issues, because we definitely are not going to accept 5-gallon trees. That's a very small tree, and we would need, at least a 7 to 8 foot or some sort of caliper inch tree to replace the ones that were cut.
The last time BSC was in here, we discussed pretty clearly that we wanted a preponderance of mature trees, given what the damage was done here. So like, it just as Bernie said, we're not going to accept 5-gallon,
Yeah, we just need the sizes
You know,
to
the
be
pro-
specified.
Availability is not our problem. It's up to the owner to get that resolved.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments from the board? Paul?
Yeah, so do you have a suggestion about how, what the caliper should be
Yeah,
on the
I'm just
tree?
curious what size would be appropriate. I mean, we're obviously not going to get trees that are 40 feet tall back in there.
On your consultant's fee then? Yeah. I am not going to sit there and tell a consultant, how to go ahead and make up a plan. That's not my job. That's their job. That's what they're getting paid for. But they do. I think you need to look at something that's going to add a large variety and mix things up, and you have to be clear as to what exactly it is that you're planting. So I think that's my. Do you not?
Yeah, no,
agree?
I agree. I need to be specific.
I have one question on your,
Happened to my question.
I'm sorry, go ahead,
Paul.
Paul, I'm sorry.
Well, I didn't hear an answer because all of a sudden started, so it isn't something that we would do to say it should be a tree of a certain caliber size.
No, I think
what you're saying?
because I mean he's going to make that decision based on the amount of he's going to have to make that equivalency between what was taken down, what can be and then what can be planted feasibly can be planted to replace it. Are you going to replace it all inch for inch? No, you can't, because.
Could I ask another question then? There were quite a few trees cut down, and there are some trees that are regrowing. What kind of trees are regrowing?
Most of the trees that are regrowing are oak trees. The
okay.
pitch pine trees aren't really showing any signs of
And when
regrowth.
trees grow back like that, I mean, they will grow theoretically into a regular kind of a healthy standard.
They're proposing stump management for 18 of those trees, so they will make 18 of those 22 that were cut a single tree.
Yeah.
The remaining 2 or 3,
Those 2 or 3, that's why I brought this, they're right up here next to the buildings, and so because he doesn't want tall trees right next to the buildings, we weren't going to propose to manage those.
will they just be let to be remain as shrubs?
Sure.
Okay,
And-
that would be
and-
preferable.
And finally, I know red maples are part of the plan. So are red maples appropriate replacement for oak trees that have been cut down? Or are they some kind of because I know some maples are very fast-growing trees. I don't know about red maples per se. I know, so are they an acceptable species to be planting, to put in?
They're more of a moist/swamp species, but they're being planted closer to the wetland, and I think they would be fine.
It'll be fine? Okay, thank you.
Some of the other shrubs that are proposed are not as well adapted to full sun, but if it's what you're proposing, then I would suggest some bayberry instead of, mountain laurel, but you can decide that.
Oh, that's a good, that is a good point. I mean, bayberry probably would
Do really well.
do better, better survival than putting a mountain laurel, or mountain laurel out in the middle of a sun-baked lot, so.
Okay, we can certainly switch some of those out.
This may be a minor point, but under your 4.0 restoration plan, your first sentence says, as mentioned above, the 19 stumps, and then later on you talk about 18. 19 stumps show sign of regrowth, remanage, left and grow, and then you mention 18, so
I think it's 18.
am I confused?
That must be a typo. Yeah, it was 18.
Okay,
I think that's typo.
all right.
Yep.
It's the English teacher in me.
That's, I get it. It's, you can't help yourself. That's right, I know. Any further discussion among the board? Brittany, any other comments?
So will the seed mix, I know you proposed a 10-foot area around the building and hardscape to not be planted, but will it have the seed mix?
Yeah, we just didn't want to. Essentially, that idea was we don't want to plant plants right next to the walkway and then have them growing over
Okay.
into the walkway and blocking the access to the buildings.
Okay, I think that was my last question.
Okay. We're almost there.
Okay. Yep. We'll come back with more exact sizes on the trees and leave larger than 5 gallon.
Okay.
Make sure you mention the seed mix, because I either missed it or it's not included in the narrative. It's important.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
So this is to be continued again
Yep.
to the 17th?
You gonna try for the next
Yeah,
time
wait.
around, Paul?
Oh, yeah.
17th?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
We have
Okay.
to vote on continuing?
Yeah, well, actually, well, why don't we do it that way? That'll be more democratic that way. Would somebody like to make a motion to continue to November 17th?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There you go. Thank you, Paul. Next order is, our next enforcement topic is 68 Horse Pond Road.
She is on Zoom, but I can give some background.
I'm sorry, she's what?
I think she is on Zoom.
Hi, can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, for now, yes, thank you.
Great.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Brittany to make a quick presentation for a summary of what's going on, and then we'll ask some questions from the commission.
Okay.
Okay? So hold on for just a minute.
Sure.
Brittany.
Okay, the property is 68 Horse Pond Road, and it's a waterfront property on Horse Pond. And in August, several neighbors contacted me with photos of disturbing acidic pond shore vegetation had been disturbed, and we can see that the area was disturbed and the sand as well. And this area is in the buffer zone to the wetland resource area. In addition, it is priority habitat by NHESP, and it's also estimated habitat. So I reached out to them with just a violation notice saying that they need to seek permission through the MISA filing for their project because it's under NHESP. It needs to be reviewed. And I spoke with the homeowner briefly. And here are the photos of the disturbance to the sandy pond shore vegetation. And you can see the similar vegetation running all around the pond that is absent.
For there.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the commission for Brittany?
Nope.
Michelle, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I do. Can you guys hear me okay? I don't know if I'm unmuted or. Oh. I'm sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, my Bluetooth died here, so I'm on speaker. But so I just want to point out, my husband and I bought the house in late June, okay? And we had a landscaper, the same landscaper who the previous owner had been using for many years, who's quite adept with conservation. He's very careful. What prompted him to go down to the beach to clean up, and let me state that he did not remove, according to him, any vegetation. My 6-year-old had a shard of glass in her foot and comes up crying. And, there's various on the beach level, debris, glass, you name it. I mean, we're at the edge of conservation. People hike through there all the time with, coolers and beer bottles and things like that. He was very careful, and he showed me photos, and what I'm not seeing here are before pictures. Because this area you guys are showing me is where we have heavy boat and foot traffic. So you can see, and you can even see on the photos that Brittany has, closer to the shore where the water is, the vegetation remains in place even on the sand. And I don't know if that's clear from her photos, but he was very careful not to remove any of the beautiful pink flowers, which I have plenty of pictures of my daughters, all summer running through them, or any vegetation near that. I mean, he handpicked debris, and if these neighbors have photos, that would illustrate that. We're back and forth from the Cape, so we're not there all the time, but he literally did this by hand. And I confirmed with him after we received this violation, because I was clear with him. He is the last person to want to upset conservation. He literally doesn't, he won't touch a pesticide with a 10-foot pole. And he said, conservation is welcome to test the sand. Nothing was applied. Nothing. I literally removed, the debris that was down there by hand, left everything else undisturbed. So I'm wondering if there are before photos that you can look at, and I'm happy to provide them to show you that this area was like this when we bought the property. Again, this is boat, we do drag, of course, our boats and our paddle boards and things like that out, and the kids play in the sand. But beyond that, I know the beautiful flowers you're talking about, they grow in the pond all through. And you can see, if you look at the public beach access to the right of me or on any other side, where there's heavy foot traffic and boat traffic, it looks exactly the same. There is not vegetation growing until you hit the pond.
Okay, so just so you understand, when it comes, as far as the property and at time of property transfer,
right.
Any violation under the Wetlands Protection Act, any violation that occurs or that is present on the property transfers essentially with the title. And so that
right.
what that means is
I
that
heard
anything
that.
was
Yeah.
done from the previous owner, it
Was
may
there
or
a
may not have been
violation
caught
from the previous
before,
owner?
but it carries on to the new owner, to the new homeowner. So, unfortunately, that's sometimes what happens. Could you tell me who the landscaper was?
Alex. I have his phone number. I don't have his last name saved in my phone, but I can get it for you. And he's happy to speak with you guys.
Is it with a company?
He has a company in the Cape. Yeah.
Okay.
Could you repeat his name again?
Let me see if I can pull it up on my invoices here.
There are calls from neighbors complaining about this.
I mean, I know who the specific neighbor is. She's also called conservation for my kids playing on the beach, saying they're disrupting turtle habitat.
I mean,
Unfortunately, she's
Well,
really had it out for us for whatever
Yes.
reason.
Hi, my name is Ludovino Gardini. I'm from Michelle Husbands.
Oh, that.
How are you guys doing?
Hi, Lou.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, the problem is the following. We are happy to try to fix the issue. We never want to. We just moved to the house in June. We haven't had time to do anything other than enjoy the little summer we had. It's a brand new house. We're excited. We didn't touch the house. So far, we have receiving notifications of violations, this and that, allegations there is a illegal apartment in the house. We didn't have time to furnish the house yet. The neighbor, Catherine Andrade, it's not several neighbors, she already called the police on us once because was leaking gas. Came the police, nothing was happening. Then she called conservation once, called conservation twice, and has been a systematic. She has also a camera pointed to my backyard, which troubles me since I have small children. I don't know what to do because apparently that's going to be a very present issue along our enjoyable coexistence between us and her. I'm happy to try to accommodate or fix the issue or plan whatever. Again, we want to be good neighbors, good citizens, and protect the environment. But we've been slapped with a violation that we are clueless what happened, what to do, and how to fix it. We are happy to. I am an attorney, and I'm happy to help the town of Yarmouth. We like to preserve. The reason we bought the house was the conservation land on the side, because I believe we live in Medford. Having all the green area for my children's priceless is once in a lifetime experience to have this contact. Having said that, we're happy to fix the issue and how to proceed here, not to keep a violation up. As my wife Michelle said, we didn't apply anything. We have guests during the summer.
So
the area is being used, but I'm happy to do what needs to be done.
Okay, so again, when nobody's saying you applied anything, I mean, at this point, as the Wetland Protection Act, as it reads, it's any alteration of a wetland resource area or a resource area buffer. Okay, so alteration is a very wide, broad scope definition. What I'm seeing in the photo right now is a severe alteration of a pond
Right.
shore. Okay, that's all I can say. I mean, I look at the rest of the pond shore and I see a lot of green vegetation growing all the way around, and then I see a very disturbed spot, and then I see a lot of green vegetation growing again. And so,
Yes.
in my mind, that is an alteration. And it
Yes,
needs to be
and
fixed.
again, if you go to the other side of the pond, there are white sand without any vegetation, which you can see also on Google Maps. Where is the property? You see the green area where is the vegetation is because it is the conservation zone. No one lives there, but I believe on the house, I'll give you the number. Hold on one second.
So,
We're only talking about this plan, please.
234 on Russell Lane. It also our beach land over 300 feet of coast, and
Okay,
I don't know what's happening.
Hold on, sir. Listen, I'm
Sure.
I'm finding it very hard. It sounds like, to me, it sounds like you're talking in the middle of a coffee can. I'm having a very hard time understanding you, so I'm going to stop you for now. I'm going to go back to the board and see how they'd like to proceed. Okay?
Sure.
so it's my from what I can gather, what the owner would like, owner bought the house in June, enjoyed it for the summer, and would like some direction on how to fix the issue. And, am I right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what I understood coming out of that. So, he just wants some direction, and he's willing to do what he has to do in order to fix the issue.
Okay.
So I think maybe that's where we need to go.
I think that's
in
where
that
we're at.
direction.
Yeah, I think we're that
But
there.
we need to, I think he needs some specifics or hire somebody. Am I right?
Yes. But I would add to that, though, I have no question that that's a disturbed area,
Yeah.
as the chairman said, and fairly symmetrical. And because the pond was in the midst of a pretty dramatic drought, you know, the shoreline has changed pretty dramatically as well, but it seems to me that that has been raked pretty aggressively.
Yeah, so I think moving forward, what we need to do is have a restoration plan put together. And I think the restoration plan needs to be done because of the location and the habitat. It needs to be done by a SERP certified restoration practitioner. I think that will, once we get a plan put together, they can make their recommendations as part of that plan as to how the best way to go forward. Because I'm certainly not a coastal pond expert, certainly. So I would really need to see what a certified person who is in fact the expert says on that.
I think that's excellent.
That's a good plan.
So I would like to see a restoration plan filed by a SERP certified practitioner to be submitted to the Conservation Commission by, we're in the middle of November now, I would say probably middle of February before we're actually going to be able to get that.
I agree with that.
You want to ask whether he followed that?
Yeah, I will. Anything else to be added to that? It's just we're looking for a restoration plan at this point for the pond shore
Since it's
by
February 15.
February. Yeah, we'll just call it February 15th because I don't know what the date is here.
Could we have an extra 30 days, please?
You want to go till March 15th?
That'll be awesome.
I'd be willing to go to March 1st, only because I'd like to have something in our hands by March 1st.
So we can plant
And
it.
we're going to be, at that point, we're going to be coming up close on when, I would imagine when things can start working. So I'd like to have a little bit of time where if we have questions or we need to adjust the plan,
March
we can
1st
do
it
that.
is.
We still have time to do it before. So by March 1st, is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, and so do you understand what we mean when we're talking about a SERP certified? It's a certified ecological restoration practitioner. There are a limited number of those practitioners in Massachusetts, but Brittany can help you. You can go to Brittany would be able to help you find and locate a SERP certified ecological restoration practitioner. Okay.
Yes.
All right, so I think with that, unless anybody has any other questions, all right, would somebody like to make a motion to issue the enforcement order and receive a SERP certified or SERP authored restoration plan by March 1st?
Yes. My wife also like to say something. I believe she has been muted.
I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Hi, yes, thank you. So two things. One, okay, a restoration back to what? That's what I'm failing to understand. Do you have photos of what it was prior that we're restoring it to, so I understand? That's one question I have.
It would be the pond shore.
What do you mean?
What the rest of the pond shore looks like.
But what pond, if I walk across to the pond shore where the trails are, there is no vegetation where you walk out down to the beach. So I'm clear on that. No vegetation. I have hundreds of pictures I can submit. I was there all summer. And I can show you now. I'm happy to walk the pond with you. I want to understand what we are restoring it back to, because if you go to the public access point of the beach where there's foot traffic and boat traffic, there is no vegetation. So
Public property.
from regular use, I mean, I can point out several properties. So I mean, I understand, and we're happy to work with you, like my husband said, but I don't even know what I would restore back. I would like some further guidance on that. One, Also, I've been in contact with, Brittany put me in contact with Emily Holt at the Endangered Species Review, or no, at MISA, I think.
So they are going to actually, so Emily is at Natural Heritage. She is, a lot of what her opinion is going to, that's going to play a big part of the restoration process, and the SERP certified individual will have to have discussions with Emily in terms of what needs to be restored. But that's
So
why
I've
you're
spoken
hiring
to
the
Emily and sent her pictures because she said, I've had this conversation with her. I called her right away, of course. And she said that if I have before and after pictures, which I'm happy to provide, showing that there was no significant alteration, and it's only in the areas where our boats are directly in front of, which it is. I'm not sure if you can tell from these photos or not. Then she doesn't perceive that anything needs to be done.
Okay.
So that's what I'm.
And if
Perhaps you guys have some photos that you can present to us to show where this was prior to us apparently buying the property, that could give us some guidance. You see what I mean? Because if I go to an engineer and ask them for restorative plan, they're gonna, what are we planting beach grass? Are we, I mean, I don't,
Ecological restoration practitioner will have expertise about.
We'll have the answer to that.
That's
Oh, okay.
That's why you're going to an expert.
That's why we're asking for the SERP certified practitioner to examine what's going on. They will be able to tell us, and if they're going to tell us that there's no harm, then that's what we're going to take. We're going to take their word.
Perfect.
That's why we're hiring a SERP certified practitioner.
Okay, I'm happy to hear that then.
They are hiring.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that works for us.
Okay,
All right.
so moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Was that you seconding?
That was me.
Melly, sorry.
All right, so if you need help finding the SERP certified practitioner, just speak with Brittany and she can give you a list of SERP certified people in Massachusetts, all right?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you. Final enforcement is for 110 River Street, South Yarmouth.
If I could just make a brief comment, there's only 2 SERP people that I know on
It's
the
not
Cape.
true, there's 5 on Cape that I can
There
name
is?
right now, yes.
Okay, last time I checked, there was only 2.
Well, we're gonna go to Brittany first and let her make her.
I'd also recommend Lindsay Strode of Cape Organics. I don't think he's SERP, but he's been doing this forever. And he was a conservation agent in Harwich, too, so he's also, in my opinion, qualified for something like that.
Okay, thanks.
I can get you his contact information.
Are they?
They're not a SERP, they'll be a last on the list, but thank you.
He's not that special, he's just very good.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay, 110 River Street. Had work for a bulkhead under an order of conditions that was extended through COVID through June of 2019. I think it was the 8th was the expiration date with the tolling. They failed to install the mitigation planting, the native seed mix, and the jute stabilization before the permit expired. And they also installed an approximately 350 square foot patio and 60 square foot granite steps without a permit. So they were issued a violation notice and to come here to discuss the matter. I have some photos.
And I'm assuming we did not get we did get a COC? Did you say we did get a COC?
No, they did not.
Okay.
Because the work was not finished and they thought it was extended longer than the COVID tolling. Sorry. So this is a plan submitted earlier from Mark showing where the unpermitted patio is located. This property is very close to the Bass River. this was where the bulkhead was installed. They're required to have a 5-foot mitigation planting area. That hasn't been done yet. And here's where the granite steps were installed without a permit. And this is what it looks like today. They did install the jute matting, I think it was yesterday. On one side, not enough jute matting to span the entire coastal shoreline. And I didn't see any evidence of any seed present under the jute matting.
So this was a mitigation area?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So this was full of grass before the patio and granite steps were put in. But they were required to have a 5-foot strip of native buffer plantings that were unspecified. But
They were unspecified, you said? Okay.
No, just a replacement.
Okay.
it was a replacement of the bulkhead, what the permit was for, that required the buffer plantings.
So it's these steps on the patio that were added after
Steps, yes.
after the order expired?
Sorry. The permitted work was for the replacement of the bulkhead, but the stairs and patio were installed after the permit expired, and they weren't in the original permit.
And we didn't put anything in terms of what was supposed to be in the mitigation or the buffer strip?
Nope.
It was work under an RDA, and it just said 5.
This was done on,
No, the buffer strip planting was specified under an RDA. And so the bulkhead said they would restore the buffer strip as specified in the RDA, which only specified the 5 feet.
all right.
I can elaborate, but anyway.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Well, so does anybody have any questions at this point?
What were they thinking?
Beside the obvious one.
Yeah. And was the dock rebuilt or just maintenance work? You put that dock photograph back up, Brittany?
Yeah, let me find it.
Like brand new material.
Yeah, so the bulkhead was replaced through the permit.
And the dock itself?
We have to look at that.
I believe just just the decking and handrails. They didn't drive any piles.
That wasn't included in the NOI?
Honestly, I don't remember, and I don't have the original permit plan with me.
I don't think it was. I think it was just the bulk.
That's a good question. Let me pull up a site plan.
It has it here.
File here.
While Brittany's doing that, if I can add to a little more history. So this project was done under a sketch plan by myself, and the work took a while. Well, it took a while to actually implement the work, and then when the owner finally decided to do it, we thought we had enough time. Contractor was in there, took longer than usual. You've heard all this before. I honestly lost track of when the order was expired, and I thought we had time to do all this. My intent, I was out there when the patio was being constructed, and I went, okay, guys, not good. What are we going to do? I'll introduce you to the person who did that. He's also a conservation agent off Cape. So I said, okay, it's a pervious patio. It's not closer to the water than anything else that's going on there. So what I suggested to them was that if you're going to finish it, then we'll cover it under the certificate of compliance and do whatever other mitigation we might need to do at that time. So it was actually a work in progress to resolve all this, but we got beaten to it. So yes, the patio is about 330 square feet. I measured it myself and I sketched it on the plan there. Well, on this plan that you have. There's photos at the end of this that show what the area looked like before anything was disturbed, before the bulkhead was replaced. And yeah, kind of nebulously, the order of conditions for this required that the same 5-foot buffer be replaced as per the previous RDA that built the house. And I'm sorry, that made some upgraded the house. There wasn't a specific planting list, so that was going to be provided. So a lot of this was a work in progress to finish out the project. So now the order's expired. Technically, they can't do any work. They were asked to jute the area, which was done yesterday. So the applicant's been I mean, he had you come down. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Good evening, Commission. My name is Sean Green. I'm the landscape architect of record. I'm also a friend of the homeowner and was asked by him, what we can do here. And seeing that there was an existing sort of haphazard patio before and steps going down to that old dock that was rehabbed. And so being in my position, I understand, you can put stuff back under if there's an open order, we can ask for it and put stuff back, but as long as you do it in the correct manner. So I did it in a PICP certified permeable install, made sure there was 2 dry wells from the downspouts, which were not there previously and sort of eroding what was there. Anyway, we put it all in according to what would be, I think, within the legal parameters. But I had not known that the permit had expired.
No, neither did I. If you go down, Brittany, in the photos that I gave you, you can see what it looked like before. It was just, you could see some, you can see some, I'm not a plant person, so I can't tell you what those were, but there were some shrubs, specific ones that were put in, and the rest had grown in with whatever kind of wild grass that is, untouched. What we initially talked about proposing was a 3-to-1 mitigation, in addition to the mitigation that's there, was a 3-to-1 mitigation for the patio. And on this sketch plan, if you run the numbers, the 5-foot vegetative buffer is about a 620 square foot area. That's required, obviously. The available additional area is 1,650 feet, which is 5 times what the patio is now. That entire area is available for additional mitigation. Had the project been left alone, I can't tell you what it would have been, but we would have had 5 feet of shrubs and planting buffer strips like you and I have done over the years. The landward part of it between there and the house could have been just grass. We're happy to come up with a better list. I'm thinking if I was sitting in your position, I'd say, well, I don't want grass there. I want more plants that are going to function better. So we're open to that. How we do a filing, we need some direction there to resolve this and close it out. And then could we treat this like we did the previous one, where it gets me out of a notice of intent filing, which I've got plenty to do.
You're not going to be doing a notice of intent, that's for sure.
So at that point, I'll say what's
so my
your
question here,
feedback?
first of all,
Yeah.
how do we go from a proposed reconstruction of failing bulkhead on Bass River to this?
Okay, so the only way to construct this bulkhead from the land was to obliterate everything from the bulkhead to the house.
Yeah, so how do we get the patio? The patio wasn't there.
Steps. Pardon me, Mr. Chairman, there was a patio there. And there was steps. The steps were failing and they were sort of sliding into the river. The patio was all disjointed. It was probably done in the, late 60s, early 70s, but it had been taken over by the underbrush. It wasn't a formalized patio. It was at one point, but when they destroyed it, it was not formal at that point. It was dangerous to walk on.
And I don't have any of the site pictures I took for the notice, which were included in that submission.
Because we don't have a distance. What's the distance from the bulkhead on that?
I don't have a scale with me. This sketch plan is to scale also.
But which one does it?
That's the one that's up there.
Is there a
See no
distance on
steps
that?
there. I don't see any step. Go up.
Oh, I didn't put
Up a little. I don't see any steps there.
I didn't put a bar scale on it, but
Onto that dock.
No, I don't either.
There was 6 steps of slate in various thicknesses that were, as they were run over by the first machine, they were just disintegrated.
Now, are these the steps from the dock?
These are the steps from the dock off his deck that came out and sort of went in a meandering pattern down to the old dock. There was only 6 of them, or 5 of them. The one time that I was there, I was not a...
What I remember of those steps was that they weren't installed level so that you walk down. They were like flagstones that were with the grade, because I remember slipping and falling on them once. So those steps, they're replaced much better than what was there and much safer, but I do remember that there were steps. I can't find a photo that shows them. I looked in Google Earth. I looked back for a winter Google Earth to see if something was there, and they're not clear enough to see. it looks like a path, but I can't tell anything else, honestly.
Yeah, I don't see on this, so this, I'm looking at the original proposed plan.
Uh-huh.
I don't see any sign of steps, nor are they called out on the plan. It looks as though if you're telling me this gray, light gray area by the house is a portion of the deck, again, it's not called out, and regardless, so, you know, you don't go replacing things without, you know, if you don't have it on the plan.
It should have said replacement of failed patio at the very least. Nothing there.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm not
if I
disagreeing
may,
with
the
you,
other
that-
issue I see here is that the jute matting, it's gone almost a whole year without that matting down, and it's just been running into the river for a year, at least a year.
No, the bulkhead was not constructed, it didn't finish construction until like June. So.
This year?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Contractor got in there in February, those
Oh,
are my
okay.
first pictures, and it took months for him to finish.
I do remember it taking a long time, because I keep going by it and looking at it, saying like,
Well, there
what's
was a
taking
lot
so
of-
long?
Yeah, I know, everybody thought, well, when are they gonna start this work? So it got started very late in the permitting process. This hasn't been open like this for
Yeah.
a year, there's no way at all.
Why is it all the rentals going down on the other picture? What's that from? If we haven't had rain all summer, why is that all?
Well, we had,
It was 2 torrential storms.
yeah, after this was done.
I understand that, but I have pictures along that shoreline during the summer when there has been no rain, and there's been worse runnels than this. So I don't know where it's coming from. I can dig out the pictures for you.
Was that after it was cleared for the bulkhead, you mean?
Yeah.
Because
I don't know if I have them on here.
the contractor showed up around February, I think, to start the wall. We'd know that from the pre-construction meeting, which I wasn't there for. But,
Well, I mean, regardless, I mean, obviously, there's some runnels there, so that's,
yeah, it was
you know,
actually.
again, you put them
Did
up
you
there
do that
now,
portion
but it
over
doesn't
there?
look like it's been seeded.
They're gonna finish it on Monday. They ran out of the, they had 2 full rolls.
So that remaining area that Ellie's talking about will be juted on Monday.
So,
They
the
ran
other
out of
thing that I'm
material.
saying is that clearly was, so you've put the jute matting down, the pre-construction meeting notes say, bank stabilization seed with native meadow mix and cover with jute matting for spring germination. Okay?
Spring 2022? Spring 2022.
It would have to be spring 2023 because it
Although-
wasn't.
No, the construction meeting wasn't done by me, it was done by
Supposed to
Kelly.
be spring of 2022.
It wasn't completed by then.
All the more reason to put the June mat down.
Well,
Again,
agreed.
so, again, we're out of, so this expired,
On
right?
this
Yeah.
camera.
And it expired,
In June.
oh yeah,
Ah.
because it had.
It didn't get-
It was tolling, right? Okay.
Yeah, with tolling, it still
So
expired in
it
June.
expired in June.
This is,
Well, my question is, if you were still working on the
this was taken
bulkhead in June,
13th.
why did you not ask for an extension?
Like I said, it slipped. I didn't have it in my calendar. I wasn't keeping track of it. It slipped off my radar. And
June 13th.
Yeah, that's looking pretty bad, and that looks like it's going over the bulkhead.
let me see.
Sure. So, I mean, let's cut to the chase here.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, do we have any pictures that show a patio where the current patio is?
No,
The old one.
The old-
No,
No, I didn't have them. I wasn't concentrating in that area, so I don't have them.
I don't have any.
I do know there were steps to the dock, and I think there was some makeshift,
And what you're calling steps
Flagstone.
in those pictures,
were probably pieces of flagstone placed at the same angle as the grade, which is why I slipped and fell on them.
again, if I'm looking at the plan, I don't see those steps being called out.
I know, it wasn't,
Minimum, they should have been called out because of their hardscape that was occurring within the vicinity of the project. That said, if you wanted to go ahead and replace the stairs, you should have come in with a revised plan. because I think in this situation, our policy is moving toward having raised steps. We wouldn't be putting the steps in grade again. So,
No?
huh?
You mean a formal set of elevated stairs 18 inches off the grade is what you'd prefer there as opposed to like erosion steps, at-grade steps?
I don't want to see granite steps cut into the bank, that's for sure.
Really?
Again, I mean, again,
I mean, I'm not trying to argue with you, I'm just,
the point is, at this point, we have steps that are cut into grade that have been replaced, and I don't know if they're bigger or smaller than what was there, and at this point, I guess it doesn't matter.
They are bigger. There's no, they're just.
So we had an increase in, hardscape. So that has to be mitigated for.
okay.
I guess what I'm saying is what we need to do is, the enforcement order needs to ask for either remove the patio and the steps and recover the area, or you can seek to try and permit filing a notice of intent to cover the work for the steps and for the patio.
Okay.
If you do that, I would expect to see significant mitigation for that hardscape. So for all of the patio and the steps, the increase in the steps. The required area, again, that required 5-foot mitigation area, because we didn't put anything in there as to the specifics other than the meadow mix. That's what you can go ahead and replace it with.
Well, it specified shrubs for the 5 foot.
Homeowner, pardon me, Commission, the homeowner's willing to basically stuff that whole thing with the improved plantings, that entire bank, which was gonna be lawn prior. So I think
It
that.
was never going to be lawn prior. The seed mix was always specified in the under the June.
I don't mean lawn, I mean
Grasses.
grasses, right?
Native
Mr.
grasses.
Chairman, this filing after the fact is doing what you want and then asking permission later and getting what you want. I just can't agree with
I'm
that.
saying, and if you're good, if the majority of the commission says remove it, I'm good with that too. That's up to the commission to decide as to whether or not you want to remove it just outright.
I would.
Which is
I
in
would agree with that.
your purview.
But that's just
Good
one
question.
vote.
Remove it and restore.
Just so that I'm clear, you're talking about the possibility of requiring the removal of both the patio and the steps, is that correct?
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's
Okay.
what Ellie is proposing, yeah.
yeah. Well, I would agree with that.
Okay, and how's the rest of the board feel on that?
The alternative is that they come up with a new plan.
The alternative would be that they keep them as they are. They come up with file an after-the-fact notice of intent that would also require them to mitigate above and beyond what is already there in the mitigation strip.
Where would
But
that
it isn't
go?
there, that's the
Where
thing.
would that be on that plan?
It would essentially fill this space,
fill
give or
in that whole-
take a little.
Wasn't that going to be done anyhow?
Yeah?
It was required to just be seeded, so they would have to propose to plant it out with significant shrub material as mitigation.
That's what I'm saying is that we can take the rest of that area, which amounts to 5-to-1 of the patio, and instead of planting it with just grass, we'll come up with a formal planting list with more environmentally valuable plants to put there as opposed to just grasses.
Mr. Chairman?
The whole area would be
Just
planted.
grass or a meadow mix or
What?
is that
Meadow
supposed to be
mix.
just grass?
Meadow
It was
mix.
supposed to be a meadow mix
Yeah,
in
not
that
grass.
strip.
Mr. Chairman, no, I don't know if I need to provide any reasoning for why I said I think things should be removed, but I will. And that's because sometimes I think, and I think I hear what Ellie's saying, it's like there's a game being played, and people that should know better are coming up with excuses as to why this occurred. And as one individual on this commission, I don't buy it. I think it's just kind of the expeditious way that they think they can get this thing done. And it happens too often, and I think it needs to stop. And the only way I would recommend it to stop is by saying, all right, you did this, you weren't supposed to. You certainly knew what you were supposed to do. These aren't unsophisticated individuals, and so it's going to have to go away, and then you're going to have to start all over again. I mean, I've seen it. I mean, I haven't been on the commission that long, but I've seen this a lot, and I think it needs to end.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. The only thing you have to ask yourself is, would you permit this if there was no enforcement, okay? Would you permit this project if they just came before us next week and you didn't know them from anything, and they proposed exactly what's on the plan now, the patio and the steps? Would that be something that you would permit with mitigation? And if the answer is yes, then I think you need to make the case that you can either remove it or give them the choice of filing an after-the-fact notice of intent.
With the new plan.
I understand that.
Well, if you look back at one on Long Pond, that they put in all those steps, and we did ask them to remove it.
Yep.
With the commission's permission, may I ask, was the one on Long Pond, did they replace the steps? Was there something already there?
No,
Is
there was
that- because
nothing there.
that's-
They took the bank out, again, took the bank out and just put the steps in.
So we didn't take any banking out. Actually, I think we helped the situation with the permeability and putting in the dry wells for that. But with deference, I'm just saying that this is a better situation than we found it, for one, that would have been ultimately if we left it alone, for two, and three, I think that I think replacing what was failed is sort of the general premise of this. I think he had something there, it didn't work. While the rest of it got obliterated during the construction process, he did not go through the correct channels or was ill-informed on how to do that. And there's an apology there that's owed, and the willing to make it right with an exuberant amount of correct plantings, so.
I'm
I have a
Again, it
question.
isn't called out on the plan that they were there. They existed.
Yeah, well, that's my fault. This was done under a sketch plan, which I did, so I will take the heat for missing that on the plan.
I would ask the question, can we fine them for what they did and then have them do a new plan and potentially approve it?
They did work without a permit, so yes.
Yeah, you can certainly fine for.
That's the direction I'd like to go.
A question on that? What's the maximum fine that could be levied? $300?
$100 a day.
Yeah. So is that significant to rectify these kind of egregious errors in maneuvers? I'm not sure.
To me, it's a point being made, and
No, I understand that, but.
that's where I'm at.
Well, if you do it $300 a day for how long that's been there, which I believe went in over Columbus Day weekend, on the weekend, a holiday weekend, that comes up to a lot of money.
Oh, it'd be a lot of money to replace all this and pull it apart.
Not as
Yeah,
much
don't-
as those fines.
I don't think we can do a retroactive.
It'd be moving forward,
As long
$300.
as it's been existing. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you would have to issue the fine and give it a certain time period and say, because it's not something you can just correct. I mean, you can't just go out and snap your finger and correct it. I don't disagree. Fine in this case seems appropriate. So I don't have any issue with that. So I think you're good for a fine, right? You're looking at a fine for $300. Okay. How stand you on I need a final resolution on how to proceed. Rip it all out, or rip it out and restore, or I should say, file an after-the-fact notice of intent with significant mitigation.
I go with the fine and the mitigation, but that's me. That's,
Well, that's what I'm asking. I need
Yeah.
the majority of the board. I need
I would
to,
go with the fine and the mitigation.
I would go with David.
I'm sorry, Pat?
I would go with David's recommendation.
I would go with taking it out and putting the original mitigation that was supposed to be in there.
The original mitigation's going no matter what. That has to be done.
I really think, here's the thing. There's no way that I could believe that this work was done and people didn't know that they needed to do various things in terms of the permits and the rest of it. There's no way that that happened. There's no way you put in those steps, which takes some effort. You have to spend a lot of money for those things. And the patio, I don't even know what the patio looks like. But, you don't build a patio right on the river and think, oh, we don't need a permit for this. That's kind of ridiculous.
No, I mean, you can't make the argument that they didn't know because clearly they came through for the notice for the
Yeah, I
original
mean,
notice
come
of
on,
intent, so.
and it would be one thing if this was a unique situation, you might say, well, you know what, we can give them a break and we could go for some mitigation and plant some things and that might take care of it. But it's not. It's not something that happens infrequently. So, that's why even saying something like, well, if it came before us, at least if it came before us, we would be able to discuss the pros and cons of what they're trying to do. And there might be an opinion one way or another as far as, we don't know. We don't know exactly. My guess is that there would be some suggestions for doing this thing differently from this commission, So here we are, and it just is, again, the egregious nature of it is just troubling. And so I would go with Ellie and say, you know what, take it out and start again.
I would say.
Go with Ellie.
So we have
3 to 2. I mean,
three
I
to rip
hear
it
what,
out.
I hear what Paul is saying, and Ellie and Rick, and I certainly can change my mind to go with that.
Are you changing your mind? Is that what you're telling me?
Certainly could, yes. Yes, I guess I am.
Okay, so we're now at,
Hang on a second.
Mr. Chairman, what is your?
The owner is here. I'll step out.
so we got 4 and 2 then, right?
Yep.
Well, I'm not sure where you are.
Well, Pat, you're still going with you're staying with fine and mitigation. Just the way I would go, but it doesn't matter because the rest of the board is saying rip it out, so.
I'm sure that everybody on this side of the table would appreciate the opportunity to try to make the site better. There's a good opportunity for lots of mitigation here and lots of good mitigation as opposed to just grass. It seems like it doesn't seem productive to have to do the work and the disturbance to take it out and then try to permit it to put it back. That, to me, doesn't make any sense. So we would appreciate certainly being able, the opportunity to provide you with a restoration plan that works.
Could I speak?
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Hi, I'm the homeowner, David McCarthy, and we've been planning this new bulkhead for 10 years. It's an extremely expensive project to kind of clean up the rotten wood, everything that was back there. So, we started it at an inopportune time right before COVID. It got extended, it got delayed, the permit got extended, and, through all of this, the termination of the permit slipped through the cracks. It just did because it took so long. Delays with getting there took forever. To your point, and maybe this is my fault if it is, I didn't know that we were doing anything we shouldn't be doing. I thought I was just improving the property. It would hold the bank back, and it was just a mess back there. I thought we did a good thing. I hope we can all work collaboratively. I mean, my family's been here for forever, and I own the 2 properties here. So I'm hoping we can kind of work together. It's an enormous upgrade from what was there before. So I'm stepping up to the plate and spending the money to get it to this condition compared to what it was before. And I just hope we can work collaboratively. There was no ill intent here, and I'm serious about that. I would have been glad to come and, talk to you about putting down the patio. I didn't think it was a structure, I didn't think it was a big deal, and I don't think any of us did. So,
Given that there was an existing.
yeah, it was just overgrown, 50 years of overgrown stuff back there. You couldn't even walk back there. So I just looked at it all as kind of one project, pulling out all that wood bulkhead that was there rotting away and pulling out all those broken steps. And these guys just went back there with the heavy equipment and just demoed everything. It was, when I looked back there, it was a lot bigger of a project than I thought it was gonna be. They demoed half the front yard, too.
I think you're bringing to light the importance of reading the order of conditions permits that we receive for these big projects. Sometimes homeowners just assume that their intentions are listed in there when they have to stick to the approved plan specifically and the special conditions that are in there, some of which are ongoing. And so the commission is just having trouble with this after-the-fact permission work because they need to be able to weigh in for the best interest of our wetlands. And they did not get the opportunity to do so, which is why they're thinking of extreme measures in this case, because how are we expected to uphold our duty without being asked permission or our comments about it?
Was it Lemco who did all the work,
Yes.
including the patio?
No. Sean did the patio.
And you're a licensed landscape architect?
Yes, and I did it as a friend, and there's no monetary, nothing.
You have a stamp. So you should be aware of what an order of conditions is then, right?
Completely. And when we spoke, the permitting was open, the existing structure was there, and it just got replaced and replenished and upgraded into a more, eco-friendly situation than what it was with the rotten.
And yet it's not on the plan, right?
That was not I didn't have any insight in that, and so I think the part that's overlooked is there's a confluence of things where the initial plan that was a hand-drawn plan did not include the original structures that were there. And whereas if a company that came in and was doing the work has a the go-ahead from the homeowner and all the rest of the place is a bomb, it's understandably easy to overlook that. And I'm not condoning it. I know there was a screw-up now, retroactively. You can look back at it. My friend asked me to come help him install this, replace his destroyed patio. So I did. And I said, well, we're going to restore this thing. Everything else is being replaced and put back in a better situation. I'm going to do this in a correct PICP permeable install, so it's no runoff, zero chance of these gutters that were just exposed, creating the runnels. Now we're gonna take care of all this in a responsible manner.
Who did the construction of the patio?
I did myself.
Did
I
you
came
use a
down
mach-
on the weekend.
Did you use a machine to put the steps in place?
I did from the top. I used a boom and a machine from the top where the wattle is. So we stayed above. I also put a silt barrier in while I was doing the work, so there was no chance of anything running through there in case it rained.
There's no way, that's one of our most important things is a pre-construction review for us to make sure that erosion is being controlled before entering the river. And that's one of the most important parts of our project. So we didn't get the opportunity to do that either.
When the old seawall was removed, the holes in the wood were,
I'm not arguing the bulkhead replacement. That was permitted. The activity was an improvement.
but.
Ironically, that was the only thing that was done well.
Oh, really?
As far as I can tell, the bulkhead is the only thing that was done in compliance with this project.
So the gray area, this is not gray area, the area that's in question was the replenishment and replacement of the failed patio and steps that were there before. So there's a procedural error that was missed. And that's where I'm falling on my sword, Mark's falling on his sword. We're asking the commission's forgiveness, and we're willing to do what we have to do to make it right. This is not an intentional thing, Mr. Higgins. This is not this is one of those things where I come and help my buddy on the weekend, put him to replace his patio, and do it in the correct way. So I understand the punitive nature of trying to make a point. I completely understand that and respect that. And ultimately, we'll respect what the commission does. But if you have a little leniency and understanding of what we're doing, we're trying to make the situation better. And we will do whatever has to be done to make that better. We don't want to rip it out and create all the eco-destruction that it's going to take to pull that out, because the same boom situation that we used, putting those things in, is not going to work, pulling them out. Because you have to, theoretically, if you go backwards, I don't think it's going to be able to start from the bottom and go back up. You have to start from the top and go down, which is, I don't think going to be a very easier.
They did it on Long Pond,
All right, so,
and they were bigger blocks.
Well, I'm not saying it can't be done. Anything can be done. It's just time and money. I'm just saying that please have some leniency on this. This is not an intentional thing. This happened, like I said, a confluence of stupidity, or whatever you want to use, whatever word you want to use. But
so as it stands right now, then I think the enforcement order needs to read that they're ordering it to be removed.
I didn't think we were going that way.
Well, I mean, unless you
let's take a vote.
switch I mean, my opinion is,
Already did.
I dislike it.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, what would be the outcome in the event of a 3-3 tie?
Motion doesn't pass.
The motion does not pass.
If I know my Robert's Rules of Order, the chairman usually does not vote unless it's to break a tie.
Okay,
That's true.
that's what I thought too.
Oh, very good point, Ellie. Very good point. So,
I still agree with Ed.
So if the chairman does not vote unless to break a tie,
yeah, I mean, and that is a very good point. And I thank you for reminding me of that. I mean, chairman, typically, sort of the vote sort of comes along with the rest of it. But my real vote is only in order to break a tie. You are correct.
So even if I go back to my original, it's a 3-2 vote.
correct.
It's 1, 2,
3.
1,
Paul, Ellie, Rick.
1,
If I go back
2,
to my original, I
and
said, 3.
Paul, Ellie, and Rick. None of you are changing your mind?
Mr. Chairman,
No, I don't know that I can do anything for you then, Mark. I'm sorry.
but you voted on everything tonight. I don't know.
We're
that
all
you can-
unanimous, so it wouldn't.
I don't know the Robert's rules by.
Actually, I didn't vote technically.
On what?
My vote goes along with the rest of but they were all unanimous votes, so
I understand.
there was nothing for me to vote on.
Is there any other recourse, Mr. Bishop, Mrs. Lawrence, and Mr. Higgins, that we can do that could assuage you to change? There's got to be something that we can do to make this right, short of destroying the place again, creating another 6 months of potential runoff. And
If I might offer, I don't mean to try and sway you one way or the other, but the only thing I see coming out of this is that you could get essentially an entire, except save for the house, the entire property could become a buffer zone. And you could make it so that there's no other work ever done on that property in terms of expansion or anything else for that matter then. I mean, they could replace things as required. They can replace in the same footprint, but to cover the amount of mitigation that would be required, I mean, most commissions you normally are looking at probably, because everything is in the 50-foot,
Yeah.
you'd be looking at 4-to-1 mitigation, and that would be something you could certainly ask for in this situation, because I think it's unique.
We have the availability to do 5-to-1.
Not with the inclusion of the granite steps, but
Well, I also have to point out that if he does come before us for any kind of addition or anything, it'll probably get denied because it's so close to the water, it's within.
I mean, there would be very difficult, you would be very difficult to do any addition anyhow, but. But if you put that into a mitigation, if you put, 90% of the altered area, basically that area south of, south of the house, all of that area could become, I don't know what the square footage is, so I'm just sort of speaking off the top of my head there. But that whole area could become a mitigation area, and you can put that a mitigation area then obviously is something that has to remain for as long as the hardscape remains. So if they want to take the hardscape out, then there might be able to be something that in the future, there would be something they could reduce that mitigation area. But otherwise, in the absence of not removing hardscape, that mitigation area will become in perpetuity unbuildable, is what it is. They're basically going over to the point where they're saying, we're giving up on doing any further expansion. And I think, in a lot of ways, I think that makes more sense. I don't like the fact that people do this, but the reality is that I think in this case, it's a unique situation in that you have the ability to essentially cut off a lot of potential future development then along the river.
It's just the whole point of it being so, as Paul said, egregious. I mean, this is not the first one that's come before us that has begged forgiveness after doing a violation, and they get what they've put in there.
But, to your point, if we presented this, what we did here, to you, is that, to use your word, egregious and would never be approved? Or would you look at that and say, maybe
4-to-1 mitigation,
with-
that it would be, that it might be okay?
I think the biggest issue here is how close it is to the river. And that entire property is within the 50. So the whole thing itself is,
But and didn't you say that the patio that we did actually secures the bank better?
Well, it doesn't have any, the patio, excuse me, I'll go forward.
it's already torn apart.
Has
I mean, nothing's growing
I
there.
don't know that you can tell it from the pictures that I took, but the patio doesn't even have stone dust. It's pea gravel between it.
It's
so
a true
extremely-
permeable installation.
Right. There is no way that the patio will have a negative impact on the buffer zone or the coastal bank. Now, coastal bank is the bulkhead. It's an artificial coastal bank. So there's no negative impacts to the resource area from this. Because it's close to the resource area, would probably be a notice of intent. And if you have standard mitigation rules of 3 or 4-to-1, there's available area to do that. I can add up the steps. I'm like, you have pictures of the steps. I didn't measure them, so I'll add that into the calculation. But as I said, along with what Ed is saying here, we have the opportunity, while it happened in a bad way, you have the opportunity to make the site better than it ever would have been if nothing was done. And I think that's an opportunity that we should be allowed to explore before going through the disturbance of ripping it out. You have a chance to have a really good enhanced buffer. You've got a licensed landscape architect here to come up with a planting plan to do just that. And obviously I think that is the better way to go, because you have a chance to make it, you can make the site so much better than what it would have been if we had done the project exactly the way it was supposed to be. All of that area south of the house is gone, all the way to the street. So if you want, tell me a number. If you want 5-to-1, I'll add up the patio, which I did, and the steps. We'll go 5-to-1. And it won't just be grasses. It'll be some valuable wetland plants that will uptake nitrogen. You're going to lose more lawn if we do that. So those are all positives going forward, although we started with a negative. I understand that. There were patios there, so I can see why there's a misinterpretation of the regulations. It's not correct, and it's my fault for not putting them on the plan in the first place.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Burgess, when, when you were making your presentation, didn't you say that you saw this patio being put in and you, something to the effect where you didn't stop it, but you knew that it was a problem?
I told them basically they were proceeding with some risk.
And, you're right, and the risk was that maybe they'd have to take it out, right? Did you tell them that?
Potentially that can happen.
Yeah, yeah. And,
When I saw the finished product, I'm like, this is actually done really well.
well, there's no question that the stuff has been done well. There's no question about that. And, you know, the thing is that it's so difficult for you, but it's also difficult for us to be put into this situation where friends help each other and they do things, and you're the consultant, and I'm not saying it's your fault, but you have the three dynamics working together, and this is the end result, and then it comes to us, and we have to make a decision about whether or not you should take it out or not. You know, we're just regular citizens who are trying to do the best for the town of Yarmouth in terms of these kinds of situations, you know? And to be put into this kind of predicament, that to me stands as very unnecessary, because folks who own property along the river, folks who make a living in terms of making recommendations for filing for permits and what they can do and what they get, and yet it ends up at this particular point. You know, it's unnecessary. It really is unnecessary. And then we have to make a decision, and we're going back and forth, and it's hard. You know, I don't feel good about the fact that I'm saying take it out, but I mean, come on. You know, it should never happen in the first place.
I don't like
But
being
anyway,
any more than you do.
if it's mitigation, it will, I think Ed does his best, and he has a lot of experience in terms of how to kind of help with these problems, much more than me. But if his direction is a way that this committee would like to go, you know, I don't think it's necessarily right, but I don't know. I'd have to think about my vote.
May I say one more thing?
Sure, say it's not me. only.
Well, I'm responding to your
Yeah,
response
sure, thank you.
to Mr. Burgess. And he has zero, the only sort of misstep that happened was there was a lack of recording of the old stuff. So that's on him. He's fallen on the sword for that. He came on the very last day as I was sweeping in the 57 chipstone into those things. So he did say, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, we're replacing what was here, the destroyed portion of it. So he didn't look the other way. It's not on him.
No, I understand.
So I don't want you guys to look at him on a different light, because it wasn't that.
Yeah, I get it.
So we did this in a 3-day period over a long weekend.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I also would have to say it's a rare opportunity to see an broken mitigation area of significant habitat that I would not, without a regulation change, our mitigation numbers are not high enough where we'll see this many other places in the coming months. It's not our issue that you missed the expiration date on the permit. Doing unpermitted work has, you know, we have to be able to enforce it in some way, if it were extreme or not. But I do think complying with the previous permit and adding a significant, if not excessive, amount of buffer zone planting would be a preferable step as to more disturbance, even if it was unpermitted work.
Yeah, I think we have a unique opportunity here to do exactly what Brittany just summarized there, and I think, you know, I mean, I still think we should be fining, and I would, to be honest with you, I'm going to go through the file and work with Brittany, and if there's a way I can give you 3 fines, I'm going to give you 3 fines for 3 different parts of the orders that were expired. Then I'm going to look to do that. But I'd say at least one, the initial fine of $300 for working without a permit. And I think it also would make a lot of sense for you to take this unique opportunity to set a good portion of riverfront completely. I mean, granted, it's a much smaller property than some of the other properties we've dealt with, but this sets a very, very strong precedent, I think, for future enforcement if we need to go that way along the river. So that's all I'm gonna say. I need somebody to come up with a motion as to what kind of enforcement order that you wanna do, so.
I'll try, and someone can help me. Rick? I'd like to move that we vote for the enforcement order with a $300 fine. A new mitigation plan, 5-1, as you mentioned. That the land will stay as is, no new buildings except for replacement of objects that need to be fixed. And I think that's it. Did I miss anything? Rick?
You allow the chairman to investigate the possibility of some additional fines.
Right, allow chairman for additional fines. Pat?
I was just saying, put a time limit of when this is gonna get done this time.
Okay. What would be a fair time limit?
Well, we'll have to do it, we'll just have, we would like to see a mitigation planting plan, if that's the route you're gonna go, by February 15th. Okay, keeping in mind what we've talked about, planting pallets and sizes, and so you know the drill on that, right, Mark?
So is this mitigation plan in addition to what was already permitted?
So the stuff that's permitted, that was permitted under the original, that has to be done separate, and that's a separate thing. That doesn't get counted in the mitigation that's being done for this
make sure that was clear.
violation.
So that's all gonna be just meadow grass?
No, it cannot be meadow.
Well, that's what the original
Well,
mitigation
that's what
was.
this part, yeah, that
Right,
first part is
that's
gonna
all
be the
gonna be
meadow
meadow
grass. That's what was originally called for, so that's what you have to hold them to, is under the
Just
the original
clarifying.
filing.
And then we're going to,
But then the mitigation planting that is going to be done for the hardscape that was put in unpermitted and illegally, that is gonna have to have a separate plan that shows, again, what did you say, 5-1, is that what you
Yep.
wanted? So 5-1. And that's gonna basically max out most of the property, I think. And that will all be within the 50-foot buffer.
Great.
So I just
Okay.
wanna make sure I have this down.
All three of you understand that?
5-1 mitigation is in addition to the solid green strip.
Correct.
Correct. And
In
my
addition
understanding
to.
of the solid green strip was not grass, that, I think that was supposed to be some
It's shrubs, yeah.
Yeah.
They just,
because there were some there.
we just need a plan for that as well, for this permit that was
But
expired.
none of that counts to the mitigation of the 5-1 mitigation.
Absolutely. That's
Okay.
why I shaded the areas differently so you could see.
Mark, this new mitigation is all within the 50, so it's.
Yeah, the 50-foot riverfront area, you can see the line there.
So I have a fine of $300, a new mitigation plan, 5-1. Chairman can review fines and add fines as needed, and then there was the use of the land itself.
Well, the mitigation plan needs to be done by February 15th.
Okay,
Okay? And submitted to the commission.
right.
And that's really essentially that.
It
We
was
just
a-
need to add as part of, as an ongoing condition of the enforcement, we would say that mitigation area is to remain undisturbed in perpetuity.
Okay, ongoing condition, mitigation.
With the understanding then that the only way you can disturb a mitigation area is by removing hardscape someplace else and trading that.
In perpetuity. I'll have to look that one up.
Okay, you good on that?
Yep, I'll tell you how to spell that.
I have a first, I need a second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of issuing the enforcement order with said conditions, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
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 So we have 1, 2, 3 in favor and 2 opposed. So the motion carries.
Thank you. And I will say that if this was a smaller lot and you didn't have the available mitigation to be able to get so much more, rip it out. But as we say, there's a unique opportunity with the size of the lot and how much available mitigation area there is, that you can make it better. So if I was sitting in your spot and there, we didn't, like, let's say we wanted 5-to-1 mitigation and there was no place to put it, that happens sometimes, then, well.
I would recommend doing it right the first time and not having to go through all that stuff.
And falling on your sword doesn't do much about doing it illegally anyways.
But I'm saying
this is just-
an instance where you can't provide enough mitigation, so too bad, but.
Just remember, you've
They do it. and
You've
ask
dodged
for
a,
permission afterwards.
you have dodged a huge bullet, okay? So especially, not so much you, I mean, because you know where you're coming from now, you know that you're not gonna have much. You as the consultants need to make sure that you understand that people are gonna remember this one, okay? So pay particular close attention to plans in the future then, okay?
Appreciate that, and duly noted.
And I also didn't see, just to make sure, I didn't see any evidence of seed down. Make sure you get seed under the jute matting.
Can do.
Okay. And
Still do that this time?
And where do we stand on the
We can put some
COC?
some of it will germinate. It's actually supposed to be decent for the next few weeks, so if we can get it under the matting and maybe
And can you say
Add it up.
your whole name for the record?
Sean Green.
Thank you.
Maybe 70 tomorrow, will be a good day to do it tomorrow.
Okay.
And
This whole
so
weekend,
You need 10
the
days
COC
of,
will be outstanding until they
More
finish it.
coverage so it can
It'll be
germinate.
windy, it'll
Just-
blow it all into the
It
river.
wasn't a COC,
Add to this,
so that they have to request
have
upon.
to request that, okay?
Be held.
All right, let's move on and finish this meeting so we can go home.
I mean, how many times has this happened?
We have meeting minutes?
often?
You're good?
What's the point in being here and having rules if they get away
No,
with
the May
it?
6th, I mean, the first one is good. The October
So
6th.
do I have a motion to approve the minutes for the meeting minutes of October 6th, 2022?
I just corrected some grammar and everything else seems to be good, just to make a comment.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Did anybody look at October 20th?
I was not at the meeting.
Okay, I will, no?
I didn't look at
Okay,
it.
I will table the meeting minutes for October 20th to November 17th. Other business not reasonably anticipated, we do have word on the conservation agent.
Yes, there is a position been approved by the Board of Selectmen for a full-time conservation agent to join the office. So that will be posted hopefully tomorrow and spread the word.
Okay, and I want to say thank you to Ellie and Pat for showing up at the selectmen's meeting and waiting the exorbitant amount of time. Well, almost as long as this
Way past my
hearing.
bedtime.
That's right. In order to show support, and I apologize for not doing it, but somebody forgot to remind me.
Right.
That's all. I'm just going to blame the administrator. All right, any other business not reasonably anticipated?
Sorry.
What's the difference between the agent and your job?
So I'll be the head of the department, and the agent will mostly it will be part like a combination of Heidi's position and a technical position. So they'll be doing administrative work, but assisting with enforcement and administrative review permits.
So
And
do they have to have?
So the
what
agent
do
will
they
do
have
the
for
administrative
education?
review.
I'm sorry,
What do they have to have for education?
a bachelor's degree or an associate's degree and experience
In science?
Already
in environmental science or similar.
Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah,
Because Heidi didn't have that.
she did not. She was solely administrative.
There's nothing growing there.
Okay.
And
Something else?
Yeah, just keep in mind, next meeting, we're going to try and review the conservation fees. I'll have a draft sent out. We're going to try and update them. They haven't been updated since 2011. And we're also going to try and get on spring town meeting for a regulation and bylaw update. So that will be happening in the winter, hopefully. Very hopefully.
Okay. I think we should add a fee for an after-the-fact filing.
Yes, that
Which
I'm
will
going to show
double.
you my proposed for next week, and we can discuss them. But at the moment, I have it as doubled.
Good, fine, thank you.
When I first, before I actually came on this committee, we were doing some kind of work and we ended up doing an extra meeting to get it done. Will we need to do that?
For the
Bylaw changes,
bylaw
right?
regulations.
I think we're required to have a public hearing, but I don't.
But
I don't
before
know.
we even get to that
A
point.
work session.
You want to do like a
Sure, I
work
have to
session.
review. Yeah, we'll have to
We
see
did.
what the.
I ran across that, I ran across my notes from.
I mean, generally speaking, that's the way to,
Yeah.
we've added another meeting.
Okay.
And we did talk, we've had discussions about dock regulations being updated.
Okay.
Also had some discussions on proposed mitigation. I found it the other day.
Yeah, that would be included in the regulation updates.
Yeah, so all of these things will be added, and that's part of the that'll be part of the bylaw.
If I remember correctly, the chairman brings pizza.
The chairman will pay for the pizza. The chairman ain't gonna make it or buy it, or go and pick it up, but I'll be glad to pay for it.
No, I'll pay for it. I was just joking.
Okay, that's good to know.
I don't have any problems with that at all, but
I like Thai, but
I might even be willing to go for a sandwich or something, but anyhow.
Okay.
All right, unless there's anything else, would somebody like to make a motion? No, in fact, you know what? I'm going to declare as chairman, this meeting is now over at 7:43 PM, because that's another thing I can do.